It was an ambush.
How many did you save?
Just like a dream.
You did the only thing you could do. And you lost.
Like a dream.
Look, we're still in this thing.
The day you walked away.
But we have no idea what we're dealing with.
Unfortunate.
Things are getting worse around here, aren't they?
Boyd, we're out of food.
Too many things are changing here. I have to remember.
Remember what?
What's missing?
Nothing that I've been through is possible.
I think you're here for what's in the basement.
This place will not break us. We can still win. But the only way we go home is together.
Hello. Hit the mark. Go. The game here is rigged. Why can't they leave us alone?
No matter what this place throws at us, we're gonna find our way home.
Everybody just talks about how afraid they are of dying. Well, I don't think that's the worst thing that can happen to you here.
Hello?
Like a dream.
You looking for these?
Into my life.
You can't save them all.
But things are really hard than you see.
Along the shore, the cloud waves break. The twin suns sink beneath the lake. The shadows lengthen in Carcosa. Strange is the night where black stars rise, and strange moons circle through the skies. But stranger still is lost Carcosa. Songs that the Hyades shall sing, where flap the tatters of the king, must die unheard in dim Carcosa.
That's what this is, the quest. And everyone has a part to play. Sometimes the quest can be scary, and when it gets close to the end, that's when it gets really scary.
And welcome one, welcome all. A quest it is indeed, as Ethan said, right from day one, and which I very much believe is a little bit of an allegory for how the entire series will play out. One giant quest that needs to be solved. Everybody has a part to play. And once you get closer to the end, that is when it gets the scariest. And since we are practically nearing the end now, if they are truly only planning 5 seasons, it looks like season 4 and 5, in my opinion, are most likely going to be a little bit dark. If nothing else, I think season 4 is going to be a much darker season even than season 3 was. We had some pretty devastating losses in season 3, like Tien Chen, and whether you like Jim or not remains to be seen. I know many people don't. But we had some big losses in season 3. It was a little bit of a dark season, especially considering how it ended. But I definitely get the feeling that season 4 is going to be even darker, as this whole story is going to get a lot, quote unquote, scarier before we get to the end, as Ethan said. So I'm looking forward to it. I cannot wait for season 4. And yes, I see a few people pointing out in the chat, we do have a little bit of a wait while we wait for season 4, a little bit of an extended hiatus, a painful wait for season 4, as Disney sucks ass says. Yeah, it's a painful wait indeed. I mean, we're hearing that it's going to be a little while. It's going to be a little while until we get season 4 on our screens. Now, I totally understand why it's going to take a long time. It seems like they probably just don't want to do another grueling winter shoot. It seems like they went through a lot of hurdles when they were filming season 3 in the dead of winter up there in Nova Scotia, especially a Nova Scotian winter, which is even harsher than the winters I get here up in the northeast of the states. Which can be bad in and of themselves. So I get it. They didn't want to film under those conditions again, so they're waiting for probably springtime to come around. So that is going to give us season 4 very, very at the end of 2025, if we're lucky, most likely probably 2026. It seems like there's even the creators of the show are have conflicting reports in terms of whether it's going to be late 2025 or early 2026. But I imagine it will be early 2026, the latest, probably. But either way, yes, we have a little bit of a long hiatus in front of us, but we are going to continue to dive into all things From. One thing I'm very glad about the season 3 finale is they gave us a lot to chew on in terms of really, really interesting things to not only theory craft going forward, but just season 4 predictions as a whole. But they gave us a lot to dive into and a lot to dissect in that final episode, including some definitive big answers that we've been waiting a very long time for. But I feel like probably one of the most intriguing things coming out of the season 3 finale is this mysterious man in yellow. And more mysterious, who exactly is he? Who is this mysterious man in yellow? Is he the big bad? Is he the villain of the show? Is this the main villain that we have been waiting for? Is this just a precursor to the main villain? I know some people don't think he is the main villain. We actually did a very interesting poll on that last week. And the results were pretty interesting. We had around 70% of people thought this was the main villain, where around 30% thought he wasn't the main villain. So a little bit split there, definitely not 100% definitive in any way. So I am looking forward to learning a lot more about this mysterious man in yellow. Is he going to be the main villain? What other abilities does he have? What purpose is he to Fromville? What function does he serve? Is he in charge of everything? Is he the one controlling all of this? Why exactly is he showing up now? And of course, who exactly is he? There's been a lot of interesting theories as to who this mysterious man in yellow is. And tonight, PM and I and you guys in the chat are going to be diving into all things from season 3 finale, season 4 predictions, who is the man in yellow, and of course, some of the striking similarities that From shares with the king in yellow and Carcosa. So we're going to have some fun. And of course, we're going to be diving into many of the cosmic horror influences that go into from Stephen King to Lovecraft to Ambrose Bierce to Robert Chambers. So many influences seem to be sprinkled into this show. So tonight we are going to dive into all of it. And we have a special guest with us, PM Philosophy. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. And I'm looking forward to diving into this part 2 of our Man in Yellow discussion.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. Yes, it's very exciting.
It is. It is. I mean, I really was satisfied with the season 3 finale. Like heading into the season 3 finale, I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit worried. I just feel like they had a lot of storylines to tie up and only one episode left to tie them all up. So I was a little bit nervous heading into that final episode in terms of what are they going to close up? What storylines are they going to finish this season? And what storylines are they going to kind of tie over and kick over to the next season? But overall, I was pretty surprised and pretty satisfied in terms of the definitive answers we got and some of the things that they did leave open for season 3 and some of the new questions we have for season 4 in particular. And for me, the most intriguing part of that finale was this appearance of this man in yellow character.
Yeah, I was really surprised that they were able to wrap everything up. I was super nervous. I kept looking at my screen and thinking they only have like 10 minutes left. How are we going to get answers? And I was worried, but they managed to give us answers and to introduce the men in yellow. And to me, it really wrapped up beautifully. I was worried because I thought maybe we would get to meet him in the second to last episode, but they did it perfectly, genuinely perfectly. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very interesting entrance, indeed. And I didn't know what to expect going into the finale. I was genuinely just had no idea where they were going to go with it. I know there were a lot of leaks going around at the time. I was lucky enough to avoid the leaks, so I
Mm.
didn't know what was coming. I know some people had it spoiled for them ahead of time, which sucks. You hate to see that
Yeah.
happen, especially on a show like this where it really is predicated on that surprise reveal, the mystery aspect of that show. So having that spoiled ahead of time, uh, that sucks. If anybody did have it spoiled before the finale, and I know a few people did, I saw a few people talking about it before the finale dropped that they unfortunately
Mhm.
saw some spoilers. That sucks. I'm terribly sorry that that happened. If you are among that number. But I was lucky enough to avoid them, so I was genuinely just had my eyes glued to the screen in this finale. Whether it was the kind of finalization, the finishing out the Fatima storyline and finding out what was going on with her. What was she giving birth to? Finding out that it was freaking Smiley of all things
Yeah.
was a little bit weird.
That was
Well,
such a surprise. That was like I was like, are you kidding? He's back?" And then the way that he was back too. He turns, looks
yeah,
at the camera, like, over his shoulder and smiles. It was just like, "Oh my god."
it was it was a shock to say the least. I will say this. Um, bare naked smiley ass is not something I had on my bingo card for the finale. I'll say that at least. I did not have a bare naked smiley on my bingo card for this finale. But nonetheless, there he is, and with probably rocking the biggest smile I've ever seen Smiley have. I mean, he's so happy to be back. Look at this guy.
Uh-huh.
He's back in the fray. And I guess my biggest question going in this scene, this one scene in particular, and welcome everybody. Thank you, all of us, for joining us on this fine, fine Saturday night evening as we dive into all things from. I'm going to say what up to the chat here in a minute, but first, I had a question for PM and for you guys in the chat. What do you guys think? Because this has been a point of contention, not contention, but this has been a theory that's been kind of split, at least in my comment section, in terms of everyone asking, did Smiley actually see Boyd down there? We see him turn around. He kind of turns into Boyd's general direction. He's got that crazy smile on. We know Boyd's right here. He's not concealed too much. Did Smiley see Boyd in this last scene, or did he just kind of turn around in general? What do you guys think in the chat? Did Smiley see Boyd? And what do you think as well, PM? Do you think he saw him, or do you think this was just a
Mhm.
general kind of turnaround?
That's a really good question. I thought what you were gonna ask was the outfit, because we also have been talking about what is he gonna wear? Does he get his old outfit
Yes.
or a new outfit? But, that's a really great question. I think he did. What do you think? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I kind of go back and forth on it. I want him to have seen him. I guess if I wanted to lean one way or the other, I think it would be cooler if he did see him. Like nothing would be cooler than to see season 4 start with Boyd just like running for his life out of those caves with Smiley and the gang kind of fucking chasing him. I'm not expecting that to happen, but it would just be kind of funny. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's part of me thinks that maybe it was just kind of a general turnaround, looking in that direction, just smiling. But the way that
Mhm.
he's kind of pointed directly at where Boyd was, and the very intense smile he has on his eyes, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he did see him.
Yeah, would make
It's
sense.
it's tough, and it would be very interesting for Smiley to get reborn, and literally the first person he sees after being reborn is the person that killed him. So there's a
Mhm.
very interesting symmetry to that. So I almost do want him to have spotted Boyd because I mean, can you imagine what that must be like from Smiley's point of view? I mean, he
Mm.
literally. I don't know what he remembers of his death. I imagine he probably remembers it. If not, I don't know. It's hard to know what these monsters retain during Rebirth. But it just adds an interesting kind of symmetry to it. I think if Smiley wakes up from being
Mhm.
reborn, the first thing he sees is the guy that killed him.
That's a really great point because it also brings full circle the "your blood is my blood." Him
Yes.
being the person who killed them and now the first to see him and his rebirth. So it really ties everything perfectly in a circle. I really like that theory.
Yeah, no, you're right. I didn't even think of that, but the whole my blood is your blood thing. It's kind of taking on a whole new meaning now. And I've even seen some pretty funny from memes on this. And again, everybody in the Discord, you guys have been just killing it with all of the from memes. They've been absolutely hilarious over these last few weeks. But one of them was a quote of that "My blood is your blood" thing, and it was basically like a meme of Smiley looking like a baby calling Boyd grandpa.
Oh God.
Um, because it's weird. I mean, technically, if you want to get technical with it, Fatima is Smiley's
Mhm.
mom right now. And if that's true, does that make Boyd Smiley's grandfather? What the fuck's going on here? We're getting into House Targaryen territory, I feel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
terrifying.
but no, it's going to be interesting to see if Smiley did indeed see him. And again, I hope he did, because again, it adds a really cool aspect. And I imagine what this must be like for Boyd, when he's coming down here and he's seeing this weird thing just growing at such a
Mhm.
rapid rate, and it turns out to be Smiley. It turns out to be the monster that he just killed. So I imagine, who knows what's going through Boyd's mind as well, seeing, holy shit, this is the thing I literally just killed, and now it's being reborn. And I wonder, is he even going to blame himself a little bit for Fatima going through this pregnancy,
Mhm.
in terms of him wondering, hey, maybe if I never killed Smiley, maybe this never would have happened to Fatima, kind of thing. So there's a lot
That's a
going
good
on here.
point. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point. I do see in
Mm.
the chat you guys have really great ideas, um, making really good points.
We do, yeah. Let's see what the chat is saying, and because again, I've been wondering this ever since the finale aired. Did Smiley see Boyd? What do you guys think? Plants, he appeared out of nowhere. Anyone saw the trailer? Yes, I just on a side note, yes, I did see the
Mhm.
trailer for 28 Years Later, and it looks so freaking good. The
Oh,
fact
yeah.
that they layered, you saw it?
Yes, so 28 Days Later is, like, my favorite movie, like Contagion
Yes,
sort of movie, and
it's my
so when they
favorite
did
zombie
28
movie.
Years Later, I just saw it, and it was, like, they have, like, spoken word poetry in a really,
Yes,
like,
that Boots
crazed
poem.
manner.
Yep.
Amazing.
I
Perfection.
thought it was so good, wasn't it? Like the use
Mhm.
of that Boots poem over the trailer and the music, it hit so freaking hard. Like that was such a good trailer that they put together. And Danny Boyle's back, Garland's back. The original team that created the first masterpiece all those years ago, which really, I mean, the zombie genre was like dead back then until 28 Days Later came out.
Mhm.
It was so freaking good. And that movie was so well received for being such a kind of small budget movie for the time. I'm pumped. I cannot wait to see 28 Years Later. That's probably something I'll even go to the theater to see. I don't go to the theater often these days. I usually wait for things to kind of release a few
Yeah.
weeks or a few months later. But that I will be at the theater for most likely.
And what I really love about that trailer is that you don't have any idea where it's going. Sometimes in a trailer, you get so much information that for people like us, we start to create a theory. And sometimes I feel like, oh, I've seen the movie. Just by watching this trailer, I
Yeah.
already know the beginning, the middle, the end. But this trailer was so amazing because there's visuals, but you have no idea what you're looking at and what the world building is going to be like.
Yeah. No, that's actually a really good point because yeah, I mean the trailer it pulls you in and it's just so interesting, but it doesn't give you anything plot wise, as you mentioned. It doesn't give the story away. And some trailers can these days. Some trailers can just give you a little bit too much. And like you mentioned, especially for people like us, for everybody who hangs out here in the chat, for us, we tend to dissect things probably a little bit more than just your average kind of normal everyday viewer. So yeah, sometimes when we look into these things a little deeper, it can kind of feel like you've already seen the episode, or it can kind of feel like you've already seen the movie. But no, that's a really good point because the 28 Years Later trailer, it does a good job of kind of pulling you in with just the sheer suspense, just the sheer kind of horror and shock value of it, and they didn't really need to kind of dive into any of the story. So that's actually a really good point. I can't freaking wait for that movie. That's gonna be a great one.
Oh, yeah.
That is gonna be a great one. Good stuff indeed. Yeah, we got some good stuff to look forward to in 2025. I feel that's going to be good. That is going to be
Mhm.
good. Was Smiley smiling at Boyd in the last shot? Exactly, Woodrow. Was he smiling at Boyd? Did he actually see Boyd? Again, I kind of go back and forth on it. Part of me really wants him to have seen Boyd, and part of me thinks he did. It's just the way that his eyes are just kind of fixed in what appears to be right in Boyd's direction, and there's just the creepy, like gaping
Yeah.
fucking smile. I don't think I've ever seen a smile that big on Smiley's face. I think he might see him there. Yeah.
Even by his standard. It's a really creepy smile, even by his standard. And he really sets the standard when it comes to like creepy yet pleasant smile. Because there's nothing that he's
Mm.
doing that's like super scary. He's just smiling at you. But it's so disturbing.
It really is so disturbing, and that's why I really love how they've crafted these monsters in terms of the smile aspect, and the aspect that they don't run, or at least until the season 3 finale, we never really see them run. I know we saw Smiley run at Miranda, but for the most part, these monsters usually don't run. They usually just walk. And that's way more terrifying. I mean, at least for me anyway. Like when I see these things just with the creepy kind of, it's like a lifeless smile. I mean, it's a giant
Mhm.
cheese of a smile, but it's also like a lifeless smile. It's got like a lifeless feeling behind it, I feel.
Mhm.
It's not like your average happy-go-lucky smile. It's a very kind of grim smile, very scary smile. And then that plus the walking, the very slow walking of them kind of just coming towards you, it's
Mhm.
creepy. It's the creepiest aspect in the world where you start to realize that, even just like simple, basic, human things that we do on an everyday basis can be incredibly creepy under the right
Mhm.
circumstances, like a smile.
Oh, yes.
Now,
And really, it's a word tactic. It's
yeah,
been used for centuries. If you really want to terrify somebody, act in a way that is strange. So the
yes.
way that they're walking puts the fear of God in you before they even arrive. They have their tactic down. They know what they're doing.
They do. They know what they're doing, and that's what's so interesting about these monsters. It's you wonder, and I always wonder how long have they been monsters? How long have they been kind of just perfecting this art of the hunt, this art of scaring the ever living shit out of people? Whether it's the very raw physical scare, or whether it's more of that kind of psychological torment that they can kind of put you through as well. They have it down. They absolutely have it down. These things, they know what they're doing. They've perfected their methods of hunting, I feel.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's a very good question, Woodrow. Did Smiley actually see Boyd? Why don't the sacrifice Anghooey kids attack their monster parents? Interesting. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but when I think of the Anghooey children in particular, I'm not sure. I mean, how much of a physical presence they are. They do seem like a
Mhm.
little bit more of a spirit form, similar to the kimono creature, kind of, where the kimono creature was very much more of a spirit form, but also was able to physically interact with the world as well. That's kind of how I see the Anghooey children, I guess, where they're almost like these kind of spirit creatures, but they can physically interact. Like it does seem like she is physically there as well. But
Mhm.
no, that's an interesting question. Why don't they attack their monster parents? I don't know. I mean, it seems like these monsters are all but indestructible, almost all but invulnerable in terms of. Doesn't seem like a lot can hurt them. Yes, Boyd was lucky enough to kill one in season 2, but he had those worms. Those worms aren't just lying around.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know why the Anghooey children don't attack their monster parents. Maybe they just know it'll be ineffective. I guess. I don't
Mhm.
know. What about you, PM? Do you think there's a reason
That's
why they don't?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I was gonna
Yeah.
say, Kristen, by now we have heard a lot of like the questions, and we have asked ourselves a lot of the questions about the show. But this is interesting. It's unique, and I had not heard this question. It's a
Me
good
neither.
take. I don't think that they're physically, in my opinion, I don't think they're physically able to. They're not strong enough. The way that
Yeah.
I view the children, they seem so weak, and they're not strong enough. But I think potentially if they were strong enough, I could see them attacking their parents. After all, their parents are the people who hurt them. So that would make sense.
I mean, I could definitely understand why the Anghooey children would have some kind of grudge, obviously, some kind of a resentment, because yeah, I mean, these were their parents, and that kind of turned on them and sacrificed them in what appears to be a very heinous way, too. Which we're going to talk a little bit about that later in terms of the sacrifice and some paintings down in Miranda's basement that might even potentially point
Mhm.
to what might have happened to some of these Anghooey children. But yeah, it's I think that's a good as answer as any, PM, where maybe they're just not physically strong enough. We've seen these monsters are pretty durable. It doesn't seem like these children have any kind of special abilities or anything like that. They seem like they're more kind of spirit avatars, if nothing else. So maybe they just can't. Maybe it's just not a match that they can entertain. But as you also mentioned, it's awesome to see that there are still new questions to ask,
Mhm.
because yeah, this is a question I have not even seen anybody ask up until this point. And you would think after all of the kind of tens of hundreds of or even thousands of hours that we've spent talking about the show on all the various different channels or
Yeah.
discords and stuff like that, you'd think that we've kind of covered almost just about everything up until this point, but we haven't.
Mhm.
And that's what's so fun about this show. That's what I really like about the season 3 finale in particular, because it does give us so much stuff where there is room for there to be, for us to ask new questions now. So
Mhm.
that's a very good point, that you point out, PM, that yeah, this is a question I've never even heard. That it's awesome that 3 seasons in, we're still able to, see the chat come up with questions that we haven't even thought of yet. So it's good
Yeah,
stuff.
you guys are awesome.
Yeah.
Always come up with like the best theories and ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Snug is around. He's spending some time with family right now, and that's all I can really say. I mean, it's holiday season. Everybody needs a break every once in a while, but when and if Snug's ready, he's always got an open invite on the show. But I know he's spending some time with family right now. So shout out to our boy Snug. I hope he's having a good trip. I miss him too. I definitely miss him myself, but he's always here in spirit. Our good old Snug. When Boyd saw Smiley, I thought he would blow his cover like
Mhm.
Juby in Ninja Scroll. I've never seen Ninja Scroll myself, but I imagine the reference is spot on, plants and herbs. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you see the freaking look on Boyd's face. He's like, holy shit.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't blow a little bit more of his cover as well. Or who knows, maybe even he did. Maybe he even did. And that's why that scene's kind of so interesting and intriguing to me, because they left it very ambiguous in terms of giving us a definitive answer as to whether or not Smiley saw Boyd. We know Boyd sees Smiley, but we're not 100% sure if Smiley actually saw Boyd in return. We just see him kind of looking in that general direction. Did Boyd have enough time to kind of duck behind the cave? I mean, we really don't know. So I like how they left it a little bit ambiguous, but
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I imagine that was quite a shock for Boyd, indeed.
Yeah, I really like this picture you have up here because his face, that's the face that we all had when we were watching. It was so shocking. They were like, "What is that Smiley?" He is shocked, um, almost like he doesn't believe it, right? And Boyd is a pretty strong person. He's seen some things. So for him to
Mm.
be shocked, it has to be extreme.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, like even for Fromville standards, Boyd has seen more than your average kind of Fromville resident from everything he went through when he and Sarah went into the woods with his encounter with Martin and such. Even for Fromville standards, Boyd has seen a lot more than the average person. And yeah, it's one of those moments where even he's just floored by what he's seeing. I imagine he's like, well, I just killed you. I literally just killed you like 2 weeks ago, bro. What are you doing back? Yeah, it's a really good scene. It was a good reveal, if nothing else. Mike Shriver, what is up? Welcome, welcome. I think they did know he was that he was there. All of them. They wanted to see. They wanted him to see. That's why they didn't kill him, because we know he's not going to be dead. He's going to make it back up top, and I definitely agree there. At least, I mean, I don't think this is where Boyd dies by any means. There have been actually some theories that I've seen in my comment section where people think that season 4 is going to begin with Boyd dying.
Mm.
I don't think that's the case though. He'll definitely make it out of here. I'd be very shocked if that was the case, that they killed him off in the beginning of season 4. I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, as you mentioned, maybe that was part of it. Maybe they wanted him to see this. Maybe they wanted, because you imagine, I could definitely
Mhm.
see that in terms of the kind of the psychological torment aspect that they've been putting Boyd through this season. Now, luring Boyd down here so he does purposely see this birth, it's not only is it just an initial shock to the system for Boyd to see Smiley back, but something like this, I imagine, would zap Boyd's hope, would take Boyd's hope, throw it in a
Mhm.
blender, and just completely decimate it. Because seeing this, now Boyd knows that he can't kill these things. He can't fight back,
Mhm.
because they will just, if he kills one, they'll end up just coming back. And who knows, maybe next time somebody else will get plagued
Mhm.
with this kind of random pregnancy that Fatima went through. So I imagine luring Boyd down here would have some added benefits if they were trying to kind of emotionally and psychologically break him. Because
Mhm.
yeah, Boyd sees this and now he knows he can't fight back. So yeah, I could see them maybe wanting him to see this.
Yeah, that's a really good point because we know that everything is basically faith, hope, courage. We have seen it in the show. And Boyd, even though they can kill him, he has been spared. However, mentally and
Yeah.
psychologically, they are just breaking him down little by little.
Mhm.
Almost, it gets to the point where death would almost be a release of that mental and psychological torture. So I could
Mm.
definitely see how this would definitely tell him there is no hope. There's nothing you can do. They're basically indestructible.
Yeah, it's putting it in perspective for Boyd, where up until this point, that was one of Boyd's kind of main goals for season 3. Is like early on we hear him talking about, I want to capture one of these monsters and interrogate it so I can learn its
Mhm.
weaknesses, so I can fight back. So he's been on that kind of crusade all season to learn more about these things to gain the upper hand, so he can combat them. But then he got that for that road to lead him here of all places to the just very grim future of knowing you can't fight back. You can't kill these things. Look at what happened when you killed one of them. What do you think is going to happen
Mhm.
if you kill another one? Who else is going to be victimized by this place and have to go through what Fatima go through? Or will Fatima have to go
Mhm.
through it all over again? Who knows? Is she marked
Mm.
for some reason? So
As the
yeah,
mother
it's
of
just
monsters, yeah. That's
yeah,
a good point.
the mother of monsters. I love that. Because and that's another thing I think was going to be interesting heading into season 4 as well. Is Fatima going to have some kind of latent or maybe dormant connection to Smiley that she can maybe utilize at some point? Because she clearly tapped into his memories when she gave birth to him. Otherwise, she never would have seen the origin of the monsters, seen how they
Mhm.
became monsters. It seems like she tapped into his memories when giving birth to him. So I can't
Mhm.
wait to see if there's a connection still there that can be used in some way.
Mhm. I think it always for me, it always ties back to, when they were talking Ethan was talking to Boyd about the goat that he loved. He
Yeah.
asked Boyd to kill her first so that she wouldn't have to suffer the pain of seeing her friends going through horrible things. And it always ties back to Boyd because, in a way, that's his story. He's spared only to see everything around him die. And that's
Yes.
way more painful than dying yourself at times, right?
Oh, I think 100% of the time. I mean, to be cursed, to kind of be the one that does survive. Survivor's guilt is a very real thing. That's super prevalent. I mean, can be
Oh,
just as
yeah.
common as PTSD in some cases, where you see everybody around you dying, all of your loved ones being put through this torment and ultimately succumbing to their mortal fate. And
Mhm.
especially knowing that you're partially the cause of it. I mean, if Boyd is at the center of this, and it seems like he is in terms of the monsters kind of, you know, uh, obviously putting him through this psychological torment, but they're also hurting people around Boyd to hurt Boyd further. So yeah, I can imagine that might be not might be. I can imagine that could definitely be worse than just dying yourself, being forced to watch everybody around you that you care about die, knowing that you're partially responsible for it. Like Tien Chen, the whole reason Tien Chen died was because they were setting up one giant trap just to psychologically torment Boyd. So yeah, I mean that would be way worse than just dying myself. I would imagine. I'd rather die myself than be
Mhm.
forced to see all my family and friends die. Hell yeah,
Oh yeah.
definitely. And that's what I loved about season three, where they gave us a healthy dose of the kind of classic physical horror, whether it's the the monsters or the man in yellow at the end. They gave us a good dose of that physical horror, but the psychological element of season three was so fun to see that take place
Mhm.
because it started to spread. It started to get to a point where just about half or more than half of our characters were being put through some form of mental anguish,
Mhm.
some form of mental manipulation was happening to almost every character by the time you get to the finale. So
Oh
I
yeah.
loved how they kind of balanced season three that way.
Yeah, and I would argue that you could see reflected and from just about every mental illness out there. All
Right?
of our characters, they reflect
Mm,
some sort of mental illness, down to the fact of them mentioning psychotic pregnancy, or phantom pregnancy. So
yep.
it has gone through multiple terms, but they also made sure to like mention that we see PTSD, we see somebody who has disassociated, like Victor, depression, people who have been driven to commit horrible things because mentally they're unwell. So I think that that's also a really interesting way of looking at the show, that you can relate and kind of see real world problems, of the mind and from.
Yeah. You really can. I mean, you can see like almost everyone is dealing with a different form of some kind of mental trauma that they're dealing with. Obviously Victor is usually the one that kind of comes to mind the most, but by the time you get to the end of season three, so many characters are displaying signs of this kind of mental kind of manipulation and these kind of um, uh, deficiencies, I guess you could call it, that these problems that people were going through. They were all having them at one point, like way more than half the cast, I would say. Um, yeah, and that's why I really love season 3. I feel like they balanced it beautifully in terms of kinda going back and forth from the just the regular physical horror to the more kinda psychological element. I love when they add that psychological element to horror
Mhm.
stories like this, where it's not just 100% physical danger all the time. Because sometimes your imagination can sometimes be way scarier than what's actually physically happening to you. Sometimes the idea of how bad something can get
Mhm.
can be way worse than how bad it actually is. So I love the psychological element of season 3 in particular.
Oh yeah. Um, I always say there's nothing in this world that is more terrifying than the human mind. The human
Mm,
mind has created everything that we have that is beautiful, and also all of the despair. There's nothing more terrifying than somebody telling you something and you spiraling and
yeah.
committing horrible crimes. The human mind is just horrifying, really, if you're in the wrong place. And like somebody was saying in the chat, this is the perfect breeding ground for all of those delusions, psychosis, mental illness, because it's such a hopeless place.
It is, yeah. That's actually a very good point. It almost kind of invites it into your psyche, where that's what this place is. It's so desolate. It's so devoid of hope that under those circumstances, I imagine that's when those kind of mental, those kind of mental problems start to develop under those exact circumstances. When you're so devoid of hope, when you're so devoid of happiness, when you're so devoid of safety, just everyday safety, those are the things that can really just start to really warp your mind after a while.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's as you guys mentioned, it is the perfect breeding ground for some kind of for mental shit to be thrust upon you. And as Justin White
Mhm.
so aptly puts out, yeah, it would have been awesome if Kenny did burn them all in the tunnel. Everybody in the town would be pregnant. Jeez.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I know we were all kind of like upset, right? We were thinking, why don't you just burn them? You should have just done it. Like that was a
Yeah.
perfect plan. We were really excited to see that happen. But now, I mean, I'm grateful that they didn't do that because that would be horrible.
I imagine that. I mean, like with all the monsters that are there, how does that even happen? Is there enough people even there to? I mean, are we going to see people getting pregnant multiple times to kind of catch up? There's way more monsters than people. Sometimes it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could get real weird real quick. So I think we're I think they're lucky Kenny stayed his hand there. That could have been fucking nuts. Um, shit. The curse of immortality overcomes the limits of death, and that's kind of what it seems
Mhm.
like, right, Woodrow? Yeah, where if these parents were cursed to become these nightmare creatures, these monsters that we've come to know and love, then yes, it stands to reason that that curse might be so strong that even death can't free them from that curse. So even
Mhm.
killing these things will have them just get brought back because the curse is that strong. So I think that could be what we're seeing. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's also a
absolutely.
punishment in itself.
Yep.
We have
Yeah.
seen it in multiple stories, literature, media, where you have a being like a vampire or an ancient being that you can't kill, that has been cursed really with immortality. They get to the point where they do want to die. They get to the
Yeah.
point where they have lived and seen everything, and it becomes stale and boring, and death is a release. So I think that's a really good point, Woodrow.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I can totally understand that. I mean, immortality might sound like a tempting thing on the onset on the surface, but then when you think about like the details that come with it, where you are kind of it's a curse in a sense where
Mhm.
you're always going to be cursed to meet and to meet people and meet friends and loved ones, fall in love, whatever the case may be. But you're also always going to lose those people. You're going to be in a nonstop cycle of watching everybody around you die while you carry on alone. So I could totally understand the whole immortality thing getting to be a little too much for like you said, we see it with in vampire stories and other immortality stories where something or someone will seek immortality in the beginning, and but once they have it, they'll realize it was a curse, not a gift. So
Mhm.
that's a good point, indeed. That is a good point. Smiley seemed pretty happy to be back. He's very
I
happy to
bet
be
he's
back.
happy. The fandom loves Smiley, so I bet that he's like really excited that we received them so well, to the point where I would argue potentially they brought him back because he was so loved. Maybe it's
Yeah.
something that they wrote in because they saw the fans' reaction to Smiley and how loved he was. So I think that that might be not only in real life, in the show as well, very genuine.
I think I think so. I wouldn't be surprised if if there was at least an element to that here at play, because yeah, I mean the way that they brought him back, it just they must have seen the outcry of the entire fandom, just not outraged but really bummed about Smiley's death. I mean he had become
Mhm.
such a staple of the show to the point where they were slapping him on all of the promotional material for the first two seasons. He was it. You think of the monsters, and Smiley was most likely the first monster you thought of. He was just so iconic with the imagery of the show. So yeah, when he got killed off, you could totally understand. A lot of fans were like, "Oh, it was a little bit of a bummer." It's like, who's going to be the new Smiley? Who's going to fill his shoes? I mean, he was so unique, and as you mentioned, he instilled this kind of feeling of dread almost every time. Not like almost every time I saw him on screen, I would get this kind of uneasy feeling. It was one of these just weird, uneasy feelings that was kind of hard to describe, I guess. It was just, he had that effect just by simply looking at you with that creepy smile. He had that
Mhm.
effect to really make your skin crawl. So yeah, I was bummed, and I know a lot of the other fans, a big portion of the fandom was bummed when he was killed off. So I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be too surprised at all if they were maybe at least in some small way influenced by the reaction of the fandom to his death as a reason for bringing him back. Maybe maybe there was a little bit more to that, because the whole way that he got brought back was very interesting. I mean, we see Fatima
Mhm.
was clearly already experiencing symptoms that she thought she was pregnant before Smiley even died. So it was weird how it kind of played out, almost like, she was pregnant with Smiley before he even really got killed, potentially.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was weird how it all played out. So maybe there's a little bit more to that. Maybe fans did have some kind of impression on bringing him back. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. The question is, if Smiley starts behaving differently and more human, would Boyd want to help him if he asked for it? Now, that's an interesting idea.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, now that Smiley has been reborn, and now that he has been reborn specifically to a human mother in Fatima, I mean, we've all been wondering if Fatima is going to have some kind of connection to Smiley going forward. But what about the other way around? What if Smiley is going to have some kind of connection to Fatima as well and feel a little bit what she's feeling? Not just, maybe that's a two-way street kind of thing. And if that is the case, could Fatima's humanity, her light, as it were. We got a lot of references in season 3 from Donna, mostly Donna, but about Fatima, exuding this kind of light, this radiance, where Donna started to realize how important Fatima was, not only to her, but to the entirety of Colony House, where she really kind of made that place a home. With, she really had that big of an impact on it. So that's going to be an interesting aspect. I mean, could some of Fatima's humanity maybe rub off on Smiley? I don't know.
Mhm. Or could it be the other way around? I like the question. I don't think that Boyd would be able to help Smiley, but could Smiley
Mhm.
start helping Boyd? If he
Ooh.
becomes a little bit more human, could he, because Smiley has more power when it comes to the danger of being in From. So could Smiley potentially tell Boyd more information that could then help them if he feels this connection to
Mhm.
them?
Yeah. I mean, because one thing we still really know next to nothing about are these original parents when they were still human. This original timeline, the original Jade, the original Tabitha. There's still so much about that whole original timeline that we just still don't
Mhm.
know. And if Smiley is coming back and he does have some sort of kind of human element to him, yeah, could that be utilized? Could they take advantage of it to learn a little bit more about what really happened? I don't know, but again, that's a very interesting concept, Hollywood Pineapple. And again, just like how Kristen brought up earlier in the chat, it's awesome how here we are 3 seasons in, we can still ask new questions that we've never even thought to ask before. Now that
Mhm.
we do have some of these new answers, so that's a good one. That's a good one. I didn't think of that myself, but it's an interesting one. Awesome stuff. Boyd's going to go out there and say, "Pack, go." We're leaving to Smiley. Let's go. We're going home, grandson. Oh
Yeah.
man, yeah. Fatima has a mental connection for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if she did. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of weird connection, kind of lingering there. Let's see what else we got. I don't know if they have the materials to trap more than one. It would probably have I would probably have to be made of steel. Maybe they only need one. Like in order to trap one of the monsters. Yeah, I mean, how would you hold one? That was another interesting question that kind of came up during season 3 as well. Like when Boyd first brought this idea up of trying to trap one of these monsters, you think, okay, what are the logistics behind that? How do you actually go about trapping one of these things? We know they're incredibly strong. Not many places can hold them. We have no idea if you can use a talisman to keep a monster in a structure. I know that's been
Mhm.
something that we've been talking about for 3 seasons now, and it's funny how even the show is bringing it up now. And that's one thing I thought was pretty wild, where season 3 in particular, we started to see tons of like really popular fan theories kind of get woven into the actual show, like the whole talisman thing. Can a talisman be used to trap a monster instead of just keeping them out? Which again was a huge fan discussion that everybody's been having for 3 seasons now. So that's one thing. Just all this stuff definitely makes me think that the writers are definitely maybe not the closest attention, but they're definitely at least keeping a little bit of an ear to the ground in terms of what the overall fandom is discussing, I feel, because we're seeing this stuff just pop up in the show now. And maybe
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a coincidence, but I don't think it is.
No, I totally agree. They could be here now.
Maybe. I mean, maybe TJK is one of them. Maybe TJK is
Yeah.
the creator himself. Maybe we're being spied on. We got a mole in the house. Maybe friggin' moles, guys. We got moles in the chat. But yeah, no. Like you mentioned, trying to trap one of these things would probably be very difficult. I mean, they seem to be very strong. Again, the whole talisman thing is still very questionable as to whether it would even work. Yeah, that's a tall task for Boyd to successfully trap one of these things with nobody else getting killed. Well, to be fair, that situation would be a breeding ground for mental. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely, which is 100% true. Just the very desolation of Fromville, the isolation of it, the hopelessness feeling. It's perfect grounds for those kind of traumas to pop up for sure. I think, all things considered, Victor really isn't that bad of a guy. Emotionally and mentally stunted, absolutely yes, but that kind of trauma could have turned him into a psychopath. That's actually a good point, Kristen. I mean, you look at everything that Victor has gone through, and yeah, I mean, I could easily see all of that stuff turning somebody into an absolute freaking just out there nut, a dangerous nut, even. But no, yeah, like you think about everything that Victor has gone through, and he came out. Obviously he's very traumatized. Don't get me wrong, like you mentioned, mentally stunted, emotionally stunted, absolutely. But in terms of like him just being a bad guy, absolutely not. He very much was able to hold on to his moral compass. Victor very much knows right from wrong, and he's got a good heart. He really is a good person. So that's a very good point. I mean, despite everything he's been through, he didn't let it turn him into a monster. Despite spending so much time with the monsters, he never became one of them. So that's a good point.
Yeah, I've
And
always thought
cheers.
of Victor as just like
Mm,
the sweetest person because he generally is a child, really. He had to go through so much. So
yeah.
I think that in the beginning, they kind of showed us a couple of scenes where we were wondering, is he a nice person? Is he like a really strange guy? But I don't think now that we know Victor as he is, I don't think that he has genuinely any bad feelings or thoughts towards anyone. He just has been through so much that he has trouble relating to people. Kind of like Jade said it perfectly, right? Jade explained to Victor's father that he is doing the best that he can growing up in a place like this. So making
Mhm.
him feel like he's abnormal, really, you are the bad guy, not him.
Yeah, and that was a really good scene with Jade and Henry because one thing we've been seeing all through season 3 is trying to see how Victor and Henry are kind of navigating these new waters. They're very much in that awkward phase where they don't really know each other that well yet. They're not quite sure on how to approach each other. Henry's not quite sure how to handle Victor, how to talk to him, yada yada. So it was a very kind of telling aspect of their relationship. And again, like you said, Victor, you look at him and you do kind of still just see that 10-year-old kid, that innocent 10-year-old kid who was separated from his family, who was stranded in a horrific, horrible place, yet he never let it turn him into a monster. And if nothing else, it is a testament to Victor's heart and his kind of courage and the moral compass that he does have inside of him. The fact that he was able to hold on to it throughout all of these decades. I mean, yes, he's definitely very desensitized to certain things. And I think we see a few aspects of
Mhm.
that, like early on in season 1 when he starts
Yeah.
digging all the graves for before
I knew you were
calling out
gonna say that.
Hastur. Yeah, he's like, I'm just getting a head start this time. So he's definitely desensitized to some things, but he still has that moral compass. At least he wants to do
Mhm.
good. He's not evil, but yeah, he's seen some shit. Fucking
Yeah.
Victor, man.
Or when he tells Sarah, like, you are the worst person, you killed your brother, you're the scariest person here. Let's go hang out now. Let's go to the basement.
Yeah,
Like
by the
he
way.
finds he finds it like totally normal to be honest.
Yeah. No, he really is, and that's why I can't praise the acting of Scott McCord enough. The guy has crafted such a unique character here. with Victor. It's a character I've really never really seen before in terms of like everything that he's thrown into this character, how complex he is, yet so relatable he is in some ways. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's the Victor scenes in season 3 were probably some of my favorite scenes to
Yeah.
watch this year, not just the emotional ones, which we had a lot of just absolute gut punches in season 3 when it came to Victor. Like when I think back on Victor's arc in season 3, it's the gut punches. It's the scenes that we had that just were like just hit you right in the freaking feels.
Mm.
Like the scene we got in the finale. The scene between Victor and Henry in the finale was,
Mhm.
despite all of the really big revelations we got in the finale, all the really awesome answers we got in the finale, I would still say this is probably my top 2 or maybe even favorite scene in the
Wow.
man, great scene. Just great scene, and this is what Scott McCord kind of can bring out of an audience, and what he brings to a set, what he brings to a character, and Robert Joy as well. Like I want to give Robert Joy his kind of credit as well because I feel like he's really nailing this role of Henry, of this kind of this distant father trying to reconnect with a very despondent son, a very traumatized
Mhm.
son. He's doing everything he can to try and connect with him, and he's just not quite sure how to approach him. But I feel like this scene was very important for Victor and Henry's relationship, where it seems like Henry finally did get through, where he finally did get a little bit. He kind of got past Victor's wall in a sense, and letting him know that no, I'm your father. I'm always going to be your father. And when Victor says you don't have to be my dad anymore, you can feel everything that Victor's feeling in that moment, the trauma and the heartbreak, and how Victor feels like he's maybe not worthy of having a father after
Mm.
letting his father down, not being able to protect Miranda and Eloise. He feels very guilty, like he wasn't worthy. And this was just a really good scene. I feel like Robert Joy, again, Henry, does finally get through to Victor in this scene, and we do see them kind of start to repair that bridge between them.
My favorite part of the scene is that they included the frustration finally being seen.
Yeah.
So we have seen Henry hear Victor mention what he's been through. And so he's cried and he's privately admitted to others his frustration. However, this is the first time that he shows his frustration to Victor. And it's not because of something horrible that he said or um, something related to From. It's because he says, "You don't have to be my dad anymore." And he finally
Yes.
snaps and tells him, like, "Where are you going?" Right? So he's really mad at him. That's the one thing that makes him upset because he's been waiting his whole life to reunite with him, to be his father again. I thought that
Mm.
was just beautiful, the way that they set that up. And then horrifying at the same time when he's describing how small Eloise was. Completely
Yes.
horrifying.
Oh my God. That and again, I'm still not 100% convinced Eloise is even dead. I mean, there's a good chance she is, yes. But just the ambiguity of that scene with Victor, when Victor is asked, "Is that Eloise?" and he says, "I think so." The parts were very small, though we couldn't really tell. I feel like they're at least leaving a little bit of room for the
Mhm.
potential that Eloise might still be out there somewhere. Although at this point it's kind of slim. I am starting to think she might just be dead, but there's a possibility at least. I'm still holding on to that hope. I'll die on the hill until I know for sure. Because until I see the scene that we got with Miranda in season 3, like the definitive scene of actually seeing Smiley kill Miranda, until I see that scene where Eloise is concerned, until I actually see her die in a flashback, part of me is going to think that she might still be out there somewhere. But who knows? Again,
Mhm.
I could very well be wrong.
I agree.
But
There
yeah.
was a little baby xylophone, and when Victor was looking through the things that he saved for everybody that he
Mhm.
found, there was a baby xylophone. So maybe what he found was that baby and not Eloise.
Maybe, maybe. And there's so much about the 1974 timeline that we don't know. Were there other kids there? Were there other kids that might have been the same size as Victor and Eloise? And maybe it's one of them. Like there's just so much we don't know. We assume that I know a portion of the fandom assumes that there's only like one child in Fromville at a time, but I don't think that's a rule. We know that at the very least there has been two children in Fromville at the same time before, with Victor and Eloise. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, could there potentially have been other children in that 1974 timeline? Did other people have kids with them there? And maybe it was one of their kids that Victor thought was Eloise because it was a similar size, but they were just all body parts. There's so many questions there. So I guess I just can't definitively 100% write Eloise off yet. Until I know for sure, until we actually see that scene of her dying. But no, who knows? Again, I very well could be wrong. All right, let's see what you guys are saying as well. Kristen Gallo says, why Fatima to respawn nightmare creatures, though? There's numerous women who are at childbearing age, so why was Fatima chosen? That's a very good question, Kristen. I still not quite sure. I did a video a while back on the potential possibility of Fatima's monster baby origin. But that was all kind of predicated on very tin-foily theories of maybe potentially there was something still left in Boyd's blood when he gave Ellis the transfusion. And then in turn, did Ellis somehow pass something on to Fatima that infected her pregnancy, maybe? But I feel like that's very tin-foily, more tin-foily than like an actual real legit theory that could have happened. But I don't know. I mean, that's a very good question. I'd love to hear what you guys in the chat think, and you as well, PM, if you have an idea on that. Why was Fatima chosen after Smiley gets killed? Like, why was it her that gave birth to Smiley and not somebody else? I mean, I'm not sure.
I think we kind of could make an assumption based on what was shown. So when they're looking for Fatima, we get one flashback. We never get flashbacks of Donna celebrating Fatima. And really, in her celebration, the speech that she gave was how Fatima was hope. She was wonderful. She said she made this place livable. And she spread her cheer and her hope to everyone. So Fatima represented hope and happiness and the possibility of being able to live a life in a place like From, something that wasn't horrifying at all times. I think that's why she was chosen. Because when we look at everybody in From, Fatima was the woman that was most hopeful and happy. She got married in From. She, met this person in From. So her life continued as it would in the real world because she didn't let From cause her despair. And I think that that's why she was chosen, because she was happy and hopeful.
I mean, it's definitely as plausible as anything I've heard. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, and that's why we all hear those very, those references from Donna about the light that Fatima kind of, exudes and it, and kind of puts forth out there, and why she's so important to Colony House. And maybe that's another reason in and of itself. Maybe another part of it was to kind of deal another blow to Fromville. Maybe they knew just how important Fatima was to them, and maybe seeing one of their most beloved members go through this horrific event would traumatize them. Maybe it was another act of them trying to lay another blow. So yeah, no, I think that's a good idea as any. Fatima was and especially after her and Ellis were just deciding to get married, she was very much riding on a high at that point. So no, I think that's possible. I think that's very possible. Absolutely. Because yeah, I've always wondered that too. Why exactly Fatima? What was so special about Fatima? Like, why was Fatima honed in on there? But no, that's a good one. My blood is your blood, says All City Big Heck. I mean, yeah, could the blood have something to do with it? Maybe. Or to get back at Boyd, as Makita says. Yeah, maybe. I suppose all possibilities. Yeah. Because Fatima is widely liked and makes people hopeful. Yeah, I think that's an interesting aspect between that and the same thing that PM was just saying. I think that's as good a reason as any, because she was kind of that figure there for sure. Boyd did say to Ellis and admit to him that he thought it was his fault. Yeah, Boyd was very much feeling guilty about it, for sure. I mean, when Boyd and Ellis are in the sheriff's station, Boyd brought that very idea up, that maybe this was just another attempt at Fromville trying to break Boyd down, trying to psychologically just torment him to the point where they're attacking his family now. So, I mean, I think Boyd very much is going to feel guilty about it. And that was before he saw that she actually gave birth to Smiley. But now that Boyd has actually seen that, I imagine Boyd's going to feel even more guilty now, knowing that, holy shit, this might have happened just because I killed Smiley. So he might feel even more responsible for this now.
That's true. That's almost like confirmation that, in fact, it was your fault.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I now know why Smiley came back through Fatima, because of him giving Smiley Boyd's blood that made him family. So he became Fatima's child because of Boy giving him his blood. LOLs, get out. Yeah, it's again, it's sometimes the show can get convoluted in some ways, but no, I like the idea that it was again, that Fatima just was that symbol. She was that hope. And maybe that's why she was chosen. Maybe because Fatima is infertile, she gives a net negative baby, i.e., monsters. That's an interesting idea. I mean, the writers did make a very clear point to illustrate to us as the audience that Fatima believed she could not get pregnant. Could that potentially have played a part as to why she was chosen? Maybe. I mean, again, definitely possible.
And that would really connect to the influence that we see of the King in Yellow. The King in Yellow will take your reality and flip it. So what is her reality? That she cannot have children. So what does he do? He gives her a child, but it's a monster. He completely turns that upside down.
And we know that's a huge aspect of what he does is driving people mad, driving people to despair. And like you said, you give Fatima this hope that she can all of a sudden have a child, only to rip it away from her in the last minute to get her to realize that it was some grotesque monster that she gave birth to. I mean, if that's not going to drive you half freaking mad, I don't know what will. Shit. But yeah, let's transition a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the Man in Yellow, one of our most interesting aspects coming out of season 3. Man in Yellow is old, sick, and dirty. Boy in White is young, clean, and healthy. They are polar, and they do kind of seem to be maybe opposites of one another. I always kind of bring up the yin and yang of it, the light and dark of it, the kind of opposite sides of the same coin, even, that the Boy in White and the Man in Yellow might represent. Are they opposites of the same coin? Are they kind of locked in this eternal struggle between the two of them? Is there some kind of grand cosmic chess game being played in the background between the Man in Yellow and the Boy in White? There's a lot of interesting parallels here between these two characters, what roles they're going to play going forward. And again, the Man in Yellow is so mysterious. I mean, there's just so much we don't know about him. And the Boy in White as well. There's still so much we don't know about the Boy in White. We got some interesting answers and some kind of origins for the monsters. And we got more information on the Anghooey Children and the sacrifice and all of that. But in terms of where the Boy in White actually came from, we still know next to nothing. I did put forth a video like a week or two ago, and it was a theory that kind of just came to me when I was actually doing another video. As a potential origin for the for the Boy in White. And we know from the season 3 finale that when the children were being sacrificed, when the Anghooey children were laid on those slabs, and when they were being sacrificed, we're told that they poured all of their hope into the roots above them. And those roots, in turn, went on to create the faraway tree, most likely the main bottle faraway tree that Tabitha went through in season 2, that they played the music at in season 3. That seems to be the main faraway tree. It seems to be this one that they created, most likely, anyway. But what if the children might have created a little bit more than just the faraway tree when they did pour all of their hope into these roots? Could the Boy in White potentially be some kind of, for lack of a better term, some kind of spirit avatar of the faraway tree? One thing I thought was very interesting in the season 3 finale was how fast the Boy in White showed up when Victor started to chop down the tree. and how we hear the boy in white talk about how important that this tree is and how it
Mhm.
can't be chopped down. Could chopping this tree down potentially destroy the boy in white? Is the boy in white tied to the faraway tree in some weird reason? Is he some kind of potential spirit avatar of the tree? I feel like if nothing else, it could explain a few things that we've seen on the show. Most importantly, the faraway trees themselves and how they actually work and who is allowed to use them. Just about every single time we have seen anybody use one of the faraway trees, it has been at the behest of the boy in white. He's literally there every single time to either point people directly to the faraway tree or at least to be nearby to kind of sanction, for lack of a better term, their usage of it. Every single time, the boy in white seemed to have some small hand in characters using these faraway trees safely until we get to season three. And we see Dale, good old friggin' Dale, hop into a faraway tree which was very ill advised. And could his passage maybe not have been sanctioned by the boy in white? Could that potentially be why he ended up trapped inside a freaking wall as the Fromville Eternal Pool Boy? I don't know, but again, it's just a tinfoil theory. But part of me wouldn't be surprised if the boy in white, if his essence was maybe tied to these trees, where if these trees get destroyed, maybe he'll get destroyed along with it. And maybe that's why he showed up so fast when Victor started chopping that one down. But I don't know. I don't know. But what about you, PM? And what about you guys in the chat? When you guys think about the boy in white and the man in yellow, do you think there is some kind of connection there? Could they potentially be opposites of one another? Could they potentially be locked in some kind of eternal struggle? When you see this dichotomy between the boy in white and the man in yellow, what comes to mind for you guys?
I really like, just briefly to go into the theory that you were talking about. I really like that idea. I think that that's generally a really good idea, and we see examples of that. Once again, we talk about the human mind. Somebody could
Mhm.
desire and want something so badly that it could become true, right? There's the placebo
Like the
effect.
Tibetan, yeah, the Tibetan myth of the tulpa, where you have just in real world mythology, you get a bunch of Tibetan monks together praying in a temple for weeks on end on a clay model, and in theory, they can literally manifest it into the physical world and bring it to
Mhm.
life just off sheer thought.
Mhm. Yeah, and even in science, let's say that you don't believe in that. Scientifically, it has been proven. It's called the placebo effect. You tell someone in a control group that they're taking medication that will help them, and some of them genuinely get well because they believe in it so much. They genuinely believe in this. We talked about the pregnancy. The mind believes that it's pregnant and the body follows even though there is no child.
Yes.
So the
Yes.
children, I like the idea that the story is not just about their hope was poured into the roots that made a tree. So right there they're telling us that their hope generated an actual tree, something physical. Maybe they
Mhm.
hoped that they would be saved so badly that they even created a warp in time and space, allowing Tabitha and Jade to come back and actually save them.
Maybe, yeah, like, and could that potentially have kicked off these whole cycles that we keep seeing? Is that why we're seeing Tabitha and Jade be reincarnated generation after generation after generation? Was that because of the Anghooey children, pouring their hope into this? That's one thing I've always wondered. We know that the parents who sacrificed the children turned into monsters, but we know Tabitha and Jade, or the original versions of Tabitha and Jade, they didn't turn into monsters. For some reason they were spared from that curse, but they kind of had their own kind of curse to deal with, in a sense, where they were now kind of destined to come back generation after generation after generation to try and right the wrong that they failed to stop the first go around. So I've
Mhm.
always wondered, was that their part of the curse? That was it the man in yellow that is responsible for these reincarnations? I don't know if that would really makes a lot of sense, considering that these reincarnations of Jade and Tabitha might be the one thing that ends up toppling the Man in Yellow and stopping these
Mhm.
cycles. So I think, as you mentioned, I think it might be a little bit more likely that maybe the Anghooey children are responsible for the reincarnations. Maybe they're the reason Jade and Tabitha keep coming back. I feel like it would just make more sense, a fail-safe in a
Mhm.
sense for them. So yeah, I like
And
that.
yeah, and really, when you think about it, if they are the parents, if you tell a parent you were unable to save your child, but there is a possibility that you could come back and try again, how many parents wouldn't take that possibility, even if it meant reincarnation and going through a journey? A lot of parents would take that. Not only would it be not seen as a curse, but it would be seen as an opportunity.
Yes. Indeed, like you said, that it's the opportunity to right the wrongs of the past, to finally fix what you failed to stop in the initial timeline. Maybe that's why we're seeing these cycles play out over and over and over again. It's more chances for them to fix the past, to right their wrongs. So no, I like that. I really like that concept. And I think it fits with some of the other evidence we've already seen in the show up until this point now. So yeah, maybe the children are a little bit more responsible for creating a little bit more than just the tree. Maybe they are responsible for these reincarnations, and maybe they are even responsible for the boy in white himself. Maybe the boy in white is the kind of living, intelligent avatar of these faraway trees. Maybe that's why he has such a close connection to them. Maybe that's why he seems to kind of almost sanction every safe use of the trees that we've seen. Maybe he is putting people or sending people to the locations where they need to go. Maybe Boyd needed to go get sent to Martin. Maybe Boyd needed to get infected with the worms. As horrific as it was, it's just
Mhm.
part of the cycle that needed to happen. Just like sending Tabitha to the real world so she could kind of get started on that road of finally remembering who she really is. These things just needed to happen. Some of them made the boy seem a little bit sus, and that was another really interesting
Mhm.
topic that the fandom had been talking about for 3 seasons up until that point, where what side is the boy in white on? Is he good? Is he evil? Does he have his own agenda? I think after this season 3 finale, I think it's looking a little bit more like it's the boy in white on one side and the man in yellow on the other. And the boy in white is actually trying to fix this, to try and stop these cycles, where the man in yellow maybe wants them to keep going and wants this never ending torment to persist. He doesn't want
Mhm.
this to stop, maybe.
Yeah, and to me, it really spoke when before he pushed Tabitha, he says, "I'm sorry, this is the only way." He could have just pushed her. If he was a bad entity, he could have just pushed her. There was no need to preface a comfort to Tabitha, but he did give her that comfort of knowing, I apologize. I'm about to push you. Sorry. So that to
Maybe.
me says, okay, he's on their side. He wants to help them, and he doesn't want to push her, but he has to.
Maybe, exactly, that's why, and we see him say the whole heartfelt, "I'm sorry, this is the only way." Maybe this was the only way that Tabitha could kind of just naturally, get to that progression where she does remember who she is. Maybe she needs to meet Henry, maybe she needs to see all these, paintings down in the basement. Yeah, it was just, again, things that needed to happen that the boy in white couldn't just outright come out and say. He needed them to experience it themselves, and I think we get a little bit of an aspect of that in episode 9, when the boy in white does come to Victor and he tells him, I tried this once with Christopher, where I kind of laid everything out, and we saw how that ended. It ended with that entire loop, that entire cycle getting absolutely
Mhm.
massacred. So this time, it seems like the boy in white is playing things a little bit differently. He wants them to kind of figure these things out on their own and not kind of lead them every step of the way, and only kind of intervene when it's absolutely necessary. So yeah, and as Makita asks, if the man in white and the boy in yellow is the boy in yellow's opponent, then he should have at least told Victor when they were talking. And I agree, he should have, but I think maybe that's probably why he didn't. I think the boy in white is just, he has a little bit of a different approach to this cycle, it seems. We know that he kind of laid everything out for Christopher. He told Christopher the origin of the of the Anghooey children, the origin of the monsters. The boy in white told Christopher everything, And again, we saw how that timeline ended. It did not end good. So maybe this is why the boy in white is playing things a little closer to the chest. Maybe this is why he's not as incredibly forthcoming as he could be, because he wants them to stumble and come across the answers naturally on their own, so they
Mhm.
can better kind of complete this quest, for lack of better terms.
Yeah, and
But
we
yeah.
kind of have seen that there is a game, right? A lot of us think it's chess because they have mentioned chess so much in the show. But if there is a game at play, perhaps he can't help and figure everything out for them. So maybe it's not that he doesn't want to, is that there are rules, regulations, like with the talismans, that prevent him from
Mhm.
helping them too much.
Maybe. Like, that's one thing we have kind of seen, a theme anyway that we have seen on the show, where it does seem like there are these kind of quote unquote rules that need to be followed. Like the monsters only coming out at night, how the talismans work. There's certain rules that need to be followed in order to work. And maybe that's one of them. Maybe the boy in white, can only naturally intervene so much. Maybe that is another kind of quote unquote rule. No, I could definitely see that. Absolutely. Absolutely. The boy in white is the avatar of the faraway trees. Good call. I think, again, I just it just seems like it's a possibility. I could very well be 100% wrong. But just looking at some of the surrounding evidence, some of the surrounding themes, how closely tied he seems to the faraway trees, and how we still really have no idea where the boy in white came from. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's not a crazy stretch to think that when the Anghooey children created the faraway tree, that they created a kind of spirit avatar for that faraway tree. And maybe that's why the boy in white knows everything he knows. Maybe that's why he knows about the origin of the monsters. That's why he knows about the sacrifice. Originally, when I first saw the boy in white, I kind of thought that maybe, and this very well still could potentially be true as well, that maybe he was one of the Anghooey children that escaped the sacrifice for some weird reason. Maybe he didn't get sacrificed like the rest of them. But I don't know. Again, I'm really starting to like the tree theory a little bit more. The
Mhm.
man in yellow would be an avatar of Fromville. Now that's an interesting kind of concept, maybe, where if the man in yellow, if the boy in white is an avatar of the tree, where did the man in yellow come from? Could he be the kind of the embodiment of the consciousness of Fromville, for lack of a better term? Because that's one thing we still really don't know about this man in yellow. Is he the main villain? Is he the big bad of the show? I tend to think he might be. If there really is only 2 seasons left,
Mhm.
there's not a whole lot of time to set up and introduce another main villain. I mean, we have to remember they have been setting up the Man in Yellow character all the way back since season one. This character's introduction has been a very long time in the making. So it definitely seems like it has that main villain vibe to him, just considering how much effort they put forth into setting up this character. Where they first introduced the idea of him at the end of season one, where we find out that this man in yellow was actually the voice on the other end of the radio that Jim heard. So looking back, they spent 3 seasons setting this character's introduction up. So it just seems like it would be tough for them to introduce another villain on top of the Man in Yellow with only 2 seasons left. I mean, it's possible, don't get me wrong. It just seems a little unlikely from a writing and a foreshadowing standpoint, considering how early they seem to set things up on this show. But again, I could very well be wrong. But regardless, where exactly did the Man in Yellow come from? Could he be the kind of spirit avatar of the forest? We know that this place, Fromville, whatever you like to refer to it as, it definitely seems like it's alive, like it is sentient in some way. We see that the place is kind of capable of even getting angry at the people. Where at the end of season one, we see that they build a radio tower, and Fromville itself sends a giant storm their way to knock the tower down. And even the boy in white kind of confirms that this place is alive, that it's
Mm.
angry. So yeah, maybe the man in yellow is the kind of the representation of Fromville. He's the Fromville side, and the boy in white is the tree side. That could be possible.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm starting to like it more and more as you really bring it like full circle. It would make
Mm,
sense because the man in yellow really presents himself as tattered, dirty, falling apart. And that's how
mm,
From is. The houses are falling apart, things are messed up, right? Even the woods are not beautiful. So it would make sense. The boy in white, he presents himself as the children do, with white clothes. The only difference is that
Yeah.
he is completely clean. So then that
Mhm.
would completely tie into the fact that he is their avatar, the tree's avatar. They created the tree, which created the avatar of the boy in white. And he's presenting himself as he looks, the man in yellow, because he is a representation of how broken and decaying this town is. I could definitely see
Yeah.
it.
No, I could definitely see it as well, and like you said, as we're kind of fleshing it out a little bit more in live time, yeah, it does it starts to fit on multiple levels. I think you make a really good point with how the boy in white physically looks. There always was this kind of idea where he looks a little similar to the Anghooey children in terms of his clothing, but like you said, a way cleaner, fresh version of it. So, and maybe that's why. Maybe that is exactly why he looks that way, where he is the idealized version of what the children looked like before were put through this sacrifice, before they were in this state. Maybe they were kind of clean and white like that upon a time, and that's why we see the boy in white reflected as such. So no, again, it does start to fit on multiple levels when you start to break it down a little bit more. And then you look at all the chess metaphors that we've been getting since very early on in season one. They've been kind of hitting us over the freaking head with all these metaphors of some kind of chess game potentially being played, both by the characters and maybe kind of metaphorically in the background by two higher beings. It's been a very big theory in the fandom for a long time that there's some kind of cosmic chess game being played.
Mhm.
And it seems like the more we get these kind of definitive answers, the more it seems like that might be the case, where the man in yellow and the boy in white are playing some kind of grand cosmic chess game. And the monsters and the people of the town, they're all just pieces on the board, which would also connect to Ethan's very early foreshadowing of the entire show, when Ethan says that this whole thing is a quest and everybody
Mhm.
has a part to play. And the closer you get to the end of the quest, that's when it gets the scariest. So yeah, it starts to fit on multiple levels when the more you start to break it down. You're absolutely right, and I
Well,
am
really,
loving it.
and now that you tie in chess into this, when you're playing chess, there are certain characters or pieces, pawns that can only move maybe one or two spaces. But there are
Yep.
pieces like on the board that can move from one edge of the board all the way to the other one, just in one swift move. So it
Yep.
would make a lot of sense that if this is a cosmic chess game, and the boy in white has his team, he would have the power to transport one of his pieces from one place in From all the way to the other side of From
Ah,
in one swift move, which then would equal the trees. That is the move.
yes.
So that kind of like really ties it in together. Um, and the fact that there are rules, because they would have to be playing
Hmm.
by the rules. Like the man in yellow, he didn't present himself until they got to a certain point in remembering. And so that takes us to when you're in playing chess, you get to the final round where you have your last two pieces, right? And you have to play them. So it's making a lot of sense. I like it.
It is. No, like that other piece you just brought up is perfectly accurate. Yeah, you do have those one pieces that they can move all the way across the board, diagonally, excuse me. No, that a representation of the tree, and then those pieces particular are almost kind of shaped like trees too. The whole little tower piece there.
Yes. Oh my God, we
So
figured it out. You heard it here first.
you heard it here
Yes,
first,
they
folks.
are shaped like that, and you have the tower. You have the piece that is a
Just
tower.
like the White House. Yes.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we
Uh,
cracked it.
I think we're cracking the code, guys. Yeah, with help of the awesome chat. Yeah, no, it does start to fit on on a few different levels where it does seem like this is the ultimate game that is being played between these two players. Where even our favorite characters, even whether it's Boyd, all of them, they're all potentially just pawns on the board in the grand scheme of what is really
Mhm.
going on here on a cosmic level. So again, and one thing I really loved about season three and the finale of season three was how it seems like we're firmly heading into that kind of supernatural territory where, after season 1 and 2, there was still a lot of debate as to what was going on here. Was this supernatural? Was this sci-fi? Like, what
Mhm.
exactly was the ultimate idea? Is it going to be simulation? Is it going to be aliens? Are they going to be dead the whole time? Is it going to be a dream? Yada yada. I feel like now that we're at the end of season 3, and a lot of those, not a lot, but some of those theories have been just outright debunked, if not by the show itself, then by the actual creators of the show and some of the recent interviews they've done.
Mhm.
They are, it seems like we are firmly getting closer and closer into that kind of cosmic horror, supernatural realm where this is a little more magic based. It is a little more supernatural based, and maybe it's not so sci-fi as because I know a lot of people thought this was going to be a more of a sci-fi show, considering
Mhm.
that it's actually technically labeled as a sci-fi show. But sci-fi can mean so many things these days. I feel like the genres of sci-fi and horror and fantasy, they tend to blend together so much these days, where just because a show is labeled quote unquote sci-fi doesn't mean it's going to have a sci-fi explanation to what we're seeing.
Mhm.
So no, I feel like we're very much heading into that kind of supernatural territory now, and that's why I feel like these kind of ideas that we have been playing with for so long, they're starting to hold even more weight, and they're starting to have even more kind of surrounding evidence to them, where it does seem like this is more supernatural than anything else. So I love that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hell yeah.
And it could be like it's totally understandable that people thought there has to be a paradox or a scientific explanation, because we have Jade, one of our main characters, going around town naming just about every like scientific explanation for this. So it's
Yeah.
understandable that we would see that and think, oh, he's going to crack the code. It's definitely science based. But
Yes.
I like the idea of it being magical, and maybe some things don't have an answer other than it just is. I don't mind
Yeah.
that. I could see
Mm.
I could see it both ways. I could see why people would want it to be science based.
No, absolutely. I mean, and I guess it all comes to kind of personal preference, really. And that's one thing that we always kind of talk about here on the channel. That's so fascinating about the show is, we're all watching the same show, but we all see it through totally different set of eyes. That is all kind of influenced and shaped by our personal experiences, our views, our beliefs, how we each individually analyze storytelling, and how we look at foreshadowing and what it might mean. Everybody interprets these things and these signs differently. So yeah, it's very interesting how, again, we're all watching the same show, but we have so many different answers as to, or so many different theories as to what could really be happening here, whether it's supernatural, sci-fi, anything in between. That's what's
Mhm.
so fun about having these discussions, I feel, because we finally can kind of get together all on one page right here in the chat and kind of dive into all of these different possibilities and see where we overlap, where we differ, where we think this is going, that is going, yada yada.
Mhm.
So no, that's one thing I really love about the show. We're all watching the same story, but we're all perceiving it through our own filter, as it were, and that will in turn create massively different theories, and that's part of the fun, in my opinion.
Of
So
course,
keep
and
it
we have a
coming.
long wait. Just like you guys were
Yeah,
mentioning in the chat, it's gonna be a long time before we get another episode. So using that time to talk about what everybody's personal opinion is and looking
yeah,
at the show in a different light, that's a way of entertaining ourselves and still talking about what we love, right? Because we're all obsessed with From. And everybody has their own theory, which is, to me, most of the fun is reading what you guys come up with, because it's really interesting. And sometimes you guys are based in science or magic, so knowledgeable. And I think like the From fandom is some of the most interesting and intelligent people out there,
yeah.
genuinely.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head there. And I feel like the way this show is, the way From is structured, it's the type of show where you need a clever audience to really dissect these things, because this show challenges you. this show really makes you think. It asks very tough questions of the audience. And I love that. I love how it's a show that doesn't hold the audience's hand, where some shows do. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some shows are a little bit more kind of surface level, whether it's an action show that's not really meant to be kind of dived deep into. There's different shows, different strokes for different folks, as it were. But that's what I love about this show. The writers are really kind of putting faith in the audience in terms of giving them the benefit of the doubt that they're clever enough to discern some of these ideas and themes that they're laying out. They don't just outright tell you with with endless exposition what exactly is happening. They leave things ambiguous. They leave it open to interpretation. They leave it open for the audience to kind of dissect and hopefully maybe decide right or wrong what is really going on beneath the surface, on top of the kind of surface level mysteries that we're seeing. So no, if nothing else, I love that the writers, they don't hold our hands. This is very much a show that you kind of have to be a little bit clever and very kind of attentive, have an attentive eye to really fully understand the show. Now, it's definitely open for a more casual audience too. Don't get me wrong. Like I know there's tons of just casual viewers out there that are watching from just kind of week to week, just kind of enjoying the story. And then you have fans like us. And I feel like fans like us are definitely a bigger majority of the fan base as a whole, because this kind of show does perfectly cater to fans like us who love diving a little bit deeper into these things, who like being challenged, who like trying to figure out a mystery and solving a puzzle. And that's what I love about the show. It gives us something to strive towards in terms of trying to figure out these mysteries, trying to figure out these deeper themes and these deeper meanings that the writers and the directors and the creators are weaving into the show on top of your regular average plot. So I love it. I love how it really challenges me as a viewer and makes me really freaking think just what the fuck is going on here. So that's
Yeah.
great.
I felt like I was entering a cult. I always say like this is a cult. This is my first time in a cult, and it's amazing and it's great fun. You have people who have been brought together from all walks of life. We're all
Yeah.
very different people, and we have this common interest. On your Discord, which is amazing, by the way, it's great fun, guys. Join his Discord. There's people up at just about any time that you have an idea, you could go on there and there will be somebody up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. who has just come up with something new on a rewatch. So I absolutely love it. It's so much fun.
It is, and like you said, you bring up a really good point. The Discord, everybody that has made the Discord what it is, it's just so awesome to see. Where you're right, you can kind of go in there at almost any hour of the day or night, and you'll almost always find somebody talking about something, theorizing about something, whether it's in the Fromville channel, the discussion channels, the general. Like it seems like there's always something happening in there. Even now, even when the show is off, we're still actively in there discussing the show, talking about theories, talking about what's possible. What does this mean? What does that mean? And yeah, that's definitely a very awesome testament to the fan base that the show has kind of cultivated, and to all of the awesome people that come and hang out, here in our little small neck of the woods. So yeah, I mean, even though the show's off, we're definitely going to continue to dive into all of these weird and trippy things. I feel like again, the season three finale in particular, they gave us so much new information, so much new material, that there really is a lot for us to kind of dive into and to dissect and kind of chew on while we wait for season four. Even though we know it's going to be a little bit of a wait, we still have a lot to talk about in the meantime. So yeah, it's been fun diving back into all this stuff, and the rewatches in particular, as you mentioned. Going back and being able to find some new things that we maybe didn't pick up the first go around. Are we going to see like Julie's character in particular? I feel has introduced a very interesting aspect to the show, where now we kind of have to go back from the very beginning and wonder, are there anything else? Are there any other events that Julie might have already influenced, like her dropping the rope down to Boyd? Huge question mark that the whole fandom has been wondering ever since that scene first happened. How exactly did Martin throw this freaking rope down if he's chained to a damn wall? And here we
Mhm.
are, a year later when we get season 3, a year and a half later when we get season 3, we get the answer to it where it was Julie, and we find out Julie has this very interesting and unique ability to travel back into the past and in some ways even interact with that past. Now, can she change anything? Still remains to be seen. I think she might be able to at some point once she gets a little bit better at her abilities. She's still very new at them. But at some point, she is going to be able to get to a point where she can kind of travel back in time at will, because we know she does travel back to the moment where Jim dies. So now I'm wondering what other events has Julie potentially already influenced on the show that we don't even
Mhm.
know about yet, that she doesn't even know about yet, because her present hasn't experienced them that. It's very interesting
Mhm.
because for Julie, time isn't linear anymore. Time is linear for most of us. We experience time going down a straight river. It's very linear. You can go forward, but you can't go backward. That is just how time works for most of us. But for Julie, it's different now. The rules aren't quite the same. Time is not linear for Julie. She can go forward and backward now. And knowing that, there's potentially so many things that happened earlier in those seasons that she could have influenced that we don't even know about yet. Like the very interesting line we get in season 1, episode 2, with when the younger monster, when Julie and Tabitha are first arriving at Colony House, when they're outside trying to be before they get let in, and we see that younger monster say, "Hey, Julie, don't you recognize me?" And I always thought that was an interesting theory that the chat was talking about after the finale, where in terms of could it potentially be that Julie does travel back in time at some point and she has some kind of interaction with this monster? That's why when we see that scene early in season 1, the monster for his present, he's already met Julie, but for her it hasn't happened yet because time isn't linear for her. So now it's added a very interesting aspect, I guess, in terms of, are there other things Julie might have influenced already that we don't know about?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I thought, okay, wouldn't it be tragic if she's the reason Thomas died? Julie would
Oof.
know the house phone number. We know that the call came through the kitchen phone. They were
Oh
standing in the kitchen.
man.
So,
Ah,
and we all know kind of like landlines to know phone numbers. It's usually a kid that memorizes the house phone number and the cell phone number so that you could call your parents. So she would be somebody that knows the house's phone number. She could potentially have tried to save Thomas. She mentions
shit.
that. She mentions that to Ethan. She says,
Yep.
Ethan
And
is
Tien
really
Chen.
sad. Yeah,
Mm.
he's really sad, right, about Tian Chang, and says, I can't remember her, almost like with Thomas. I can't remember him. And she says, I might be able to save Thomas and Tian Chang. So I think maybe
That
she tries to make a phone call, letting her parents know, can you please make sure not to leave him alone at the changing table? And she's actually the phone call that kills him.
shit. Like, and it would just add a very tragic aspect to it, where like you said, Julie, the very act of Julie trying to save Thomas is the very act that kills him ultimately. Just
Mhm.
the cosmic karma in that, in and of itself. I mean, if there is anything else that's trying to tell you that you shouldn't meddle with time travel, it's a concept like that, where you have no idea what your meddling is going to lead to,
Mhm.
where, man, the very act of you trying to save your brother is literally the thing that freaking kills him. No, I love that. I love that concept, and that's
Yeah,
why
and, like,
that's the
remember when she got into town? We all found her to be very cruel, at least I did, and I
yeah,
know I heard that from the
yeah,
fans too, like, a lot of other
oh
people
yeah,
were right there with me, we were typing like, "She is so mean, she's horrible."
she
Um,
was.
she's,
Yeah,
like, playing this game with Ethan, and she's the one he's playing perfectly fine, a happy little story, and she's the one that kills, these characters, these 2
Norman,
characters.
poor Norman. Yeah,
Exactly, and, Ethan refers to, his brother Thomas as maybe one of the characters, like Norman going on a hero's journey, and who kills him? It's Julie. She comes along and she makes up the story where they end up dead.
man, it fits a bit. More than a bit, it fits. Yeah, I didn't even think of it, but to be honest, and that's what's so fun about this finale in terms of all these new things that the show has kind of introduced in one single episode. Now there's so many different realms that we can kind of theorize down, and other realms that we know not to theorize down because we know it's probably not heading in that direction. So we really got some good information with this finale. But no, you bring up a really good point. I mean, yeah, I totally didn't even realize that Ethan was referring to Norman as Thomas, that it was like a Thomas influence thing. It fits. It makes sense where, you know, the very tragic act of her trying to save something ends up causing it in the first place. And I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see more instances of that, like Jim's death, for instance. Her
Mhm.
traveling back trying to save Jim could potentially factor into why Jim was killed, even. So yeah, I like that, and that's the funner aspect of time travel. That's the aspect of time travel that is interesting, that I do like. And that's one thing where I know I've said in the past, I'm very weary about shows introducing time travel later in their run. Shows that aren't originally built around time travel, that have a very
Mhm.
clear and logical way of explaining how the time travel works, like Dark. I always point to
Oh, yeah,
Dark
dark.
as being it's that's a really good example for how to do time travel right, in my opinion. The Dark on Netflix.
Mhm.
And then I look at some aspects in terms of how to do time travel not so right. And I have to even kind of call out Lost a little bit on that. As much as I love Lost, and I feel like they saved the storyline in the end and they brought it home in a really nice way, there were certain times during season 5 of Lost where I thought, I really hope this time travel aspect doesn't ruin the show. But luckily, again, they kind of pulled out of the nosedive with a good ending. But that's it's reasons like that that I'm a little bit skeptical and
Mhm.
weary when shows just introduce time travel way later on in their run,
Yeah.
unless they have a very kind of set parameter for how it works and how they're going to use it on the show. And I think the way that they've introduced it on From has been very interesting, where it's not like just full on time travel in the traditional sense. It's more of this kind of avatar story walking, spirit walking, as they refer to it, that Julie is doing, where her physical body isn't going anywhere, isn't traveling in anywhere. It's just an astral form of her that is traveling to these other destinations, these other time periods. And that's going to be fun going forward, to seeing where else is she going to travel to and what other events is she going to influence on a positive scale, or as you mentioned, on a negative scale. Are we going to
Mhm.
find out that her traveling and her using her story walking ability might directly cause some of these tragedies that we've already seen or will see on the show? So I mean, her
Mhm.
character really got so much more interesting just in that one episode, I feel, because before then,
Really?
I mean, I don't want to say she was a bad character, because I don't think there's any bad characters on From. I think all of them have merit in their own way, but her character really got a lot better after the finale.
Mhm. I agree. And if I just may say, I love it that you say that's the fun aspect of time travel, and we're talking about her
Mhm.
killing her brother, her baby brother. It's like
Yeah,
super fun, and like her father dying right in front of her.
yeah,
Um,
that's like the fun
Great show.
aspect of time travel. Just chaos, murder, and mayhem. That's the fun
Yeah.
aspect of it. Shit, you're right. I didn't think of that.
I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah. Gee,
I'm just
no, I know, I know.
teasing.
Yeah, good stuff. That may be why Jade didn't figure it out and Jim did. Jade was looking through a different lens. Very good point, Makita. Absolutely. You got these two characters looking at the exact same thing, at the exact same numbers, and even Jade, with all of his smarts and all of his kind of algorithm recognition techniques and all of that, still wasn't able to see what Jim was able to see just by looking
Mhm.
at it with the whole 12 thing. So yeah, no, that's a really great
It's true.
example of seeing things through different lenses, and then sometimes it takes two people or three people coming together looking at the same thing before you can actually really solve it. Just like there,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I really like that that was a bit of a positive thing for Jim, because now we know that he was
Mhm.
gonna go through such a horrible thing right after. But it did his
Uh,
character a bit of justice. The fact that he did have this contention with Jade, where Jade felt that he was more important or more intelligent, called him
yep.
teacup. And at the end, after Jade had spent so much time trying to figure this out, it just took Jim getting on board and saying, fine, I'll take a look at it. And he figured it out. So I like that they gave the character that, because I feel so bad for what they did to him after. Um,
I
and so
know.
basically he wins, right? If we were looking at
Hmm.
this ongoing battle, because Jade
Yep.
and Jim had this ongoing battle of wits and smarts. And
Yep.
Jade always mentioned how smart he was. Jim always mentioned like his family and how vapid Jade was. And at the
Yep.
end, Jim wins that battle, but Jade wins the family. He gets to keep the wife.
Yeah.
And
That's that's actually a really good point. I mean, for as smart as Jade is, it's actually Jim in the end who actually solves it. Who actually, at the very least, is the one who inspires Jade so he can solve it. Without Jim, none of that happens. They never discover the song. So no, I totally agree with you. I really like how it's unfortunate how they killed Jim off, and I did genuinely kind of feel bad for him in the end, just seeing the gut punch that he receives, following by the literal throat getting ripped out. It was a tough way for someone to go. And again, I wasn't a big Jim hater. I never really hated the character. Yes, I definitely saw his flaws, but I didn't hate Jim. I thought Jim was an interesting character, and I thought he was heading into some interesting places, because as you mentioned, these last two episodes in particular, they give him some really good character development that was much needed
Mhm.
for his character to evolve, to take that next step, because he was looking at things through a very kind of um, black and white lens, where he's holding on to his family so tight in hopes of protecting them that he's not realizing he's stifling them at the same time. And it's not until Jim has that conversation with Jade, until he has that conversation with Henry, who gives him that great advice, like, "Hey, you're me 40 years ago, pal. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing my freaking self. All the mistakes I made back then with Miranda, you're making right now with Tabitha. You can't look at her in the sense of something that needs to be fixed." Until Jim finally realized that, he actually when Jim finally realized that is when we do start to see this change in him. We do start to see him evolve, grow as a character, just before they freaking take him out. So yeah, it was a little tragic to see how Jim went. Dude got a rough deal in the end, I would say. Got a rough deal. But as you mentioned, he was very much responsible for solving the whole numbers issue. Without him, Jade may have never solved that. So that's a very good point.
Mhm.
Yeah, Dark is definitely one of the better shows on Netflix to come out for sure. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, 1899 got canceled after one season. I liked 1899 when it started. Like, I loved the beginning of 1899, but just for me personally, the simulation reveal kind of ruined it a little bit for me, and I think that's just a personal bias on my part. I'm not a big fan of quote unquote simulation shows and movies. I'm just not a big fan of that concept, I
Mhm.
guess. I feel like when you introduce something on a kind of magical, interesting kind of level like 1899 did, 1899 very much started off in the kind of mystical, magical, supernatural kind of realm where all this unexplained stuff was happening. And then later on, you get the reveal that it is just one giant simulation. It just, for me personally, it kind of cheapens some of the magic that was previously set up, where all of a sudden all of these magical and weird kind of mystical aspects can easily be explained away by just being a simple computer algorithm. So for me, I'm not a big fan of the whole simulation. That's why I was very afraid, not afraid, but that was one of the endings that I just did not want to see on From. Out of all of
Mhm.
the explanations that what From could be, all of the possibilities of what could be going on here, I think the one ending I would hate the most would be to find out that From is one giant simulation. That's like my ideal horrible ending. But again, that's just a little bit more of my personal bias because I'm just not a big fan of the simulation concept. But I know it's very popular, so I know I'm probably in the minority there, which is totally fine. But yeah, 1899 did start off really good though.
I like the simulation of it. I I like it. I think that I start to question my own reality, and I start thinking,
Mhm.
"Wow, I really like that they started the episodes with the wake up, um, to
Yeah.
remind themselves this is not real, but they couldn't wake up."
Mm.
I start to spiral, right? But that's just me. I spiral into thinking, am I alive? Am I really like here? Could I be a
Yeah,
simulation? So I find it
yeah.
really interesting. But yeah, I could
It's
see why people don't like it because it would just end up being a program.
Mhm. And there's fun merits to that as well. Like there's ways to make that fun too. So I don't get me wrong, and that's one thing I always used to mention. Like if From is does turn out to be a simulation, if it's a if it's a new and unique version of a simulation that we've never seen before, I would be totally fine with that. As long as it's something kind of new and unique and something we haven't really fully seen yet, that's what I really wanted to see happen with From in terms of when we do get these big reveals, when we do finally figure out what this place is, the purpose of it, and all of that. Like I'm really hoping it's going to be something that isn't too similar to a lot of things that have come before. So if simulation was a possibility, if it was again a very unique new version, a very new take on the simulation idea, I would be totally cool with that. As long as it
Mhm.
was something kind of unique that kind of surprised us. Whatever
Yeah.
method they deliver that in is fine.
Well, you
But yeah,
told us you're afraid. Now we all know you're afraid of it being a simulation.
yep,
um,
that's my fear.
that's
That's
your
literally my fear.
biggest fear in life. Okay, so that would be the worst case scenario. Um,
Yeah.
what do you think, and maybe the people in the chat, what would be your ideal ending?
Oh man, I don't know if I ever even thought about that. That's a very good question. But yeah, definitely everybody in the chat, let me know what you guys think. What is the best ending you guys could hope for with From? And I definitely want to hear yours as well, PM. But man, what would be the best ideal ending? Man, that is really tough. That is really tough. I mean, obviously, I really like the supernatural aspect and the kind of mystical element. So I am hoping that this is one kind of giant quest, for lack of a better term. I really like the concept that Ethan sets up very early on in season one in terms of this being one giant quest that needs to be completed, where it's not going to be as simple as just finding the exit and all piling out. They do that, they'll most likely be pulled right back in like Tabitha did. I think they very much are here for a reason. They're here to complete something specific. And I think the season three finale, didn't all but 100% confirm that really, where
Mhm.
this is kind of where the show seems to be heading a little bit more into that supernatural realm, that mystical realm where saving these Anghooey children successfully where everybody else has failed might be the ultimate quest. So I'm actually fine if that ends up being the ending. Now, how we get there is going to be a very interesting kind of road because I do see a lot of our characters dying. I get the feeling that
Mhm.
there's going to be a very small handful of our main characters that have been here from the beginning that will actually make it to the end and make it out. Most of these characters are going to die along the way. Some of them, dying in heroic ways, sacrificing themselves for others, like potentially how Boyd will die and Victor will die. I think those two characters in particular will die in a sacrificial manner, saving everybody else. But I do also see other characters potentially being corrupted along the way. That's one thing we've seen very prevalent on From, which is another thing that is very similar with the King in Yellow as well,
Mhm.
where this place very much drives people mad. It drives people to the brink. It shows you that kind of that hidden answer, and that hidden answer can in and of itself drive you mad. So I very much am expecting From to go along those lines, where most of our characters are not going to make it, and again, some will sacrifice themselves to save everybody else. But I think we're going to see some other characters potentially go dark, down a similar path that Abby did. But it's hard for me to just pinpoint one kind of concept that is the best ideal ending. I have a few concepts of endings I don't want to see happen, but in terms of one
Mhm.
I really do want to see happen, I just hope that it's supernatural in the long run, that this is a more of a supernatural ending. But what
Yeah.
about you?
Um, Most of the time when I ask questions, I don't have the answer myself.
Me too. I'm the
So,
same way.
I just think of questions, but you guys are gonna hate this, okay?
Uh-oh.
But this is like my personal if it was just for me, if the show was for me only, and you
Yeah.
guys are gonna hate it, and it's totally okay. It would be a Sopranos sort of end, where maybe they go through the
Ooh.
journey and they go through the tree. And so you see all of the characters that are being saved or that have rescued the children, have gone through the journey, and they go through the tree, and the screen cuts to black. You don't know if they made it to the real
Whoa.
world or where they went. And like I said, it's
Shit.
sad. I know you guys don't like it, but to me,
No, I
because I
fucking
would keep
love
them
it.
alive in my heart.
I actually love that. I loved the Sopranos ending, and I was actually a little bit bummed even later on when David Chase started to talk a little bit about what potentially happened after the screen cut away and how he kind of hints at Tony and his family actually getting killed. That's information I never even wanted to know, to be honest, because I just love the ambiguity of
Mhm.
that ending. It was so frustrating at the time, like when Sopranos first ended, like that night I was watching, because I still remember vividly. I used to watch that show with my father every single week. My father,
Mhm.
big. Most of our family is Italian in origin, and he's the
Oh,
you know
nice.
the oldest old school Guinea you can ever imagine. He is Tony Soprano,
Did
pretty
he
much.
like how it was depicted? Since he is like a
No,
real
he didn't. He
he
didn't like the
didn't?
ending.
Oh.
He was a little frustrated by it, but even I was like when it first aired. Like I'd love to see what he would think about it now, all these years later. I'm not sure how he feels about it nowadays, but I didn't. It was an unsatisfying feeling, I guess, when I first watched it. But then, the more time that started to pass, the more I started to really enjoy and appreciate how that show was ended, and just the ambiguity of it, the pulling the rug out from underneath our feet and not giving us that satisfactory answer that we all thought was
Mhm.
coming. It was kind of genius in a way. And I remember there was a big kind of phenomenon when The Sopranos ended. So many people started grabbing their TV and they all thought their TV went out because like the way it cuts to black is
Yeah.
so abrupt, and it's so abrupt and it's not very smooth like other times. Like this is a theme that or a technique that has been utilized for decades in terms of just not giving people the answer to an ending, not giving them the full ending, just cutting to black right before that reveal. That's been used before in the past, but usually it's like a very kind of less subtle transition where you can kind of tell they're kind of transitioning into black. But the way the Sopranos did it, like the cut was so abrupt that so many people thought their TVs went down and they didn't see the ending because their TVs fucked up. And I remember that being a big story that week after the show aired, where so many people thought their TV just fucking gave out. So I started slapping my box. I thought I lost signal.
Mhm.
See,
Did
same thing here. We literally thought our TV went out. We were pissed. We were so pissed. We were like, "Fuck, are you kidding me right now of all times?"
Oh, and that was
It
back
was
in the day where, like, you had to catch the show at that time, right? You couldn't,
yes.
okay, so that's extra frustrating because that was it. That was the airing, right? You would
Yeah,
have
you
to
couldn't
wait for it
rewind it. There was no TV. I mean, unless you had the foresight of maybe recording it on VCR, which we never did. Yeah, that was it. You missed the ending. You missed it. That was it. You couldn't rewind. You couldn't go back and see it again. That was it. It was gone and over. And that's what a lot of us thought. Like, oh fuck, what the hell happened? Our TV
Mhm.
just went out. And I remember that being a big story when that show ended because yeah, there's no TiVo or DVR or anything like that back then, unfortunately. But
I
no, it was
loved
a
it.
good
I
ending.
love things like that because you
I
could
do
keep
too now.
these characters in your heart, they're alive. To me, I could make up whatever I want
Yeah,
about Tony, and I
yeah,
can give him a happy, like, life with his family in my heart, and nobody can tell me otherwise because the film didn't show what actually
yep.
happened to him. And I guess a lot of people do mention, they want satisfaction in an ending, but I guess it
Mm,
depends on what satisfaction is to you. For
yes.
example, like the Kenny and Christy love story. Sometimes you have love stories or like a connection that is more
Yeah.
beautiful when it's not tainted by reality, when it's
Yeah.
unspoken. Once it's
Hmm.
like spoken, reality enters that relationship and it tarnishes everything. And you may say, well, that's not satisfactory because we're never going to see Christy and Kenny get together or express their emotions verbally, like really express it, tell each other they love each other. But in a way, to me, that's satisfaction enough to see that they love each other and that it's just pure and not corrupted by reality. But once they spoke it, and once Mariel came in and reality came into the relationship, because they were basically isolated from reality, everything was ruined. Feelings got hurt. Kenny, poor Kenny, like what happened to him? He basically got ghosted in a place where it's impossible to ghost someone because the population is so small. She disappeared.
Yeah.
Her fiance came in and Kenny like rarely saw her again. And never did they have the conversation of what happened. So he was ghosted in a ghost town. It was horrible.
It is ghosted in a ghost town. He really was. Yeah. No, not and like you said, I've come to appreciate endings like that. Like now, I actually really enjoy the ambiguity of something like that because it leaves it up to your imagination. And like we've said earlier, sometimes your imagination can run way more wild on how something could go as opposed to actually seeing how it goes. Sometimes that ambiguity is good. So I have come to respect that and I have come to appreciate those kind of endings a little bit more nowadays than I did in the beginning. That's why I'm kind of a little not bummed, but I think about Twin Peaks and how that show was originally supposed to end. Now, Twin Peaks, I mean, if you guys like Lost or From or any kind of mystery show at all, Twin Peaks is what I like to call the godfather of mystery box storytelling. Long before any kind of deep mystery show, any mystery show that we see nowadays or over the last 10, 20 years, um, it all really started with Twin Peaks, in my opinion. That show really set the bar for what a mystery show could be. And it was just, from start to finish, it just had me glued to the edge of my seat, glued to the screen. I could not wait to see what was going on. I could not wait to find out who killed Laura Palmer. Never in a million years would I have thought that a simple murder mystery could have been so entertaining. And one of the things I learned way later on after Twin Peaks ended and long after it was all done was how originally David Lynch originally when he pitched the show to the network originally he was never going to solve the murder of Laura Palmer. He was going to leave it open ended. He was going to get to that final episode and leave it in a sense where two or three people were going to be like the main suspects, but he was never going to actually solve the murder of who killed Laura Palmer. That was how he originally wrote and pitched the show. But this was way back in the day in the 90s when TV storytelling was much different than it is now. And the format for storytelling back then was much more kind of rigid and much more kind of, there was a set kind of way to do these things. Nowadays, TV's evolved a lot in the way where you have stories in so many different genres that go into so many different directions. But back then, the networks felt like the audience was very accustomed to beginning, middle, and ending, and getting a satisfying beginning, middle, and ending where good triumphs over evil kind of thing. That was kind of the set format, and that's what a lot of shows followed, and that's what a lot of networks greenlit. So when he kind of pitched this show in this format to the network early on, where you get all the way to the ending and you never solve the main mystery of the show, who killed Laura Palmer, you leave it a little bit ambiguous where again it's two or three people that it would have come down to, and the network wouldn't do it. The network would not greenlight the show unless he wrote a version where the audience got that satisfactory and definitive ending, because again it was just a different time back then. People were looking for different kinds of storytelling, or at least the networks thought people weren't open to those kinds of storytelling. But I think they're wrong. I think if he would have had a chance to tell that story the way he originally intended it, and never solving the murder of Laura Palmer, I think audiences would have loved that. It would have been so ahead of its time. It already was so ahead of its time in terms of how that show was written and how it played out. But yeah, I mean, I have come to really appreciate ambiguous endings like that ever since, where you kind of do leave it a little bit open ended. Let's not give everybody the definitive answer right on a
Yeah.
plate. Let's let them kind of ponder on what could have happened. And then, like you mentioned, there's so many possibilities you can go with from there because you have these characters alive in your head forever at that point.
Hmm. When it comes to like true crime or crime, because that wouldn't be true
Mhm.
crime, that would be fictional crime.
Yeah.
I do differ in that idea. I like my fiction to be open ended, but when it comes to crime, I really want them to solve the crime because in real crime, in
Mm.
real life, so many times, that's the real ending, that you
Yeah.
have something
True.
happen and that there is no resolution. And so when it
Hmm.
comes to crime, especially of that sort, um, I will not watch something if the person that committed the crime and it was a gruesome crime gets away. I don't like that.
Okay.
It
Hmm.
all of a sudden it becomes too real, too scary.
Yeah. Okay. No, I can see that. I can definitely see that. I mean, you bring up a good point. I mean, especially in real life, like the real world that we actually live in. More often than not, crimes go unsolved, and murderers kind of go away, scot free and clean. And people's murders don't always get solved and answered, and they don't get that justice. The family doesn't get that justice they're looking for. So no, I can definitely understand that. I mean, I can understand where the networks were coming from. It is a little bit from a just a overall standpoint than looking at the general audience. It is more satisfactory when you see good triumphing over evil. That's why we have the
Mhm.
whole hero's journey format of storytelling, and that's why the hero's journey is so popular because people like seeing their heroes get brought down low just before they raise up and ultimately conquer over evil. And again, that's why I mean the hero's story, the hero's journey has been kind of mimicked in so many different genres of storytelling, whether
Mhm.
it's fantasy, sci-fi, horror, mystery. There's so many different versions of the hero's journey, but they're all kind of the same at the end of the day when you look at the actual structure of the storytelling. It's
Yeah.
it's your heroes starting off on a quest, and you see them going through trials. You see them finding out who they are. You see them being brought incredibly low to rock bottom to the point where they are brought to that threshold, as Ethan refers to it in From, where they're faced with a choice to give up and go back or to continue on your journey. And you get brought very low just before you get to the ending and rise up and ultimately conquer and triumph over the evil. So I totally understand why that format of storytelling is still so popular to these days because people like seeing the good guy win. But every
Yeah.
once in a while, I like a good anti-hero. Every once in a
Yeah.
while myself.
That's what I was about to say. So I was thinking about that today. I was speaking with someone who's a writer, and they already have one book out, and I was talking about like the hero's journey. And what came to mind was characters potentially like the Man in Yellow, but like the Joker, like Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, where in a way, when you look it up, you have the villain's path, but you don't have
Yep.
a villain's journey. And I
Yes.
disagree. I think that the villain should have a villain's journey because a lot
Yep.
of the time, you can root for the villain, you could want them to be right and to be free, and they themselves started out as maybe potentially somebody that was innocent and that was kind,
Hmm.
beaten down by life. And we don't know what happened to them along the way that tarnished all of that and made them become this villain. The painting that we
Yep.
see of the Man in Yellow, he looks clean and he looks young,
Yep.
but now he's
Hmm.
all tattered. So what happened? Potentially he has his own villain's journey, and if we were to see
Yeah.
that, we could even empathize with him like we do with the Joker. I really love that movie. I don't know if did you guys in the chat, did you guys happen to like that, or I know a lot of people didn't.
I haven't seen the second one yet. I love the first
No, the
one.
first
I thought
one.
I loved it. I thought it was a great take on the Joker. It was a really good take on how people can get driven to that evil place, to that insane place by the very circumstances of the life around them sometimes. So no, I really enjoyed the first one. I haven't seen the second one yet, but I thought the first one was brilliant, and it was incredibly successful as well. That movie was made on like a $50 million budget, and it ended up making over $1 billion. It was the biggest profit margin of the year that year in terms of how much money it made for the for WV. But no, I enjoyed it. Again, I'll check the second one out eventually once it's on some kind of streaming service for free. But no, I thought it was good.
Yeah,
I
I'm
thought
never gonna
Joaquin
watch
Phoenix
the
did a good
second
job.
one because I hear
I'm
negative
not in a
things about
rush.
it. So
Exactly. I don't want it to ruin. That's exactly why
so I'm
I
just
have been
gonna leave it
hesitant
at
to
like
see
the
it.
really great like first one
Yes.
where I
I
love
don't want
Joaquin
it to
Phoenix
ruin
and
it.
that's it. That's
Yeah.
it.
I'm kind of right there with you. That's why I have not been in a rush to see the second one because I see all the reviews and not even the reviews. I remember seeing the trailers. I remember seeing the concept for the second movie. It doesn't sound anywhere near as interesting as the first one did. So yeah, I'm in no rush to watch it because yeah, you kind of don't want that image to get ruined sometimes when you have a very particular image. Like when a movie leaves a very um, a very profound impression on you, it's very easy to destroy that impression with sequels. So sometimes sequels are not
Mhm.
always the best idea. I mean, sometimes one and done is the way to do it. You leave people with that just perfect image in their mind of this Joker character, and you never go back to it. You leave people just with that, and I think they should have done that with the Joaquin Phoenix Joker franchise. I don't
Mhm.
think they should have done a sequel. It was never meant to be a sequel. That was always meant to be just a one movie standalone performance. But of course, the network saw how well it did, and they just couldn't help themselves. They had to do a second one, and that's the cash grab nature of Hollywood, the greedy
Mhm.
nature of Hollywood, where art doesn't take precedent over profits. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. But no, I agree with you. I mean, part of me really doesn't even want to see that second one because I don't want it to ruin the
Mhm.
image of that first one because it's so fucking perfect.
It
It
really
really
is.
is such a good movie. I mean, but as you mentioned, the man in white, the man in yellow. Yeah, when we originally see him in the painting, he looks a lot younger. He's got this black hair. I mean, he looks a lot more put together. Even his suit looks a lot cleaner. He
Mhm.
looks in like he's seen some better days. And then all these years later, potentially, I mean, who knows if it's all these years later, if Fromville is actually changing and we're seeing the boy in white also start to age, could the man in yellow also be going through a similar transition where he is also starting to age just like the boy in white is? Why is that the case? Why is Fromville changing? And even when we look at some of the paintings in Miranda's basement, and I know I mentioned this in my man in yellow, who is the man in yellow video, but
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is a depiction of the younger version of the man in yellow. And I think this could be a depiction of him maybe actually sacrificing the Anghooey children. I mean, it looks like these are the children. We see them in other paintings, in Miranda's other paintings. So I thought this could potentially be him. And PM, you rightly pointed out the little red tint in the eye, which the man in yellow also still has, the little mark on the cheek, which the man in yellow also still has, and back then when he had more darker hair, which is a more younger version of him. And I mean, I feel like the yellow couldn't be more clearer that this could potentially be a depiction of the man in yellow sacrificing the children.
Mhm. And
But
okay, so to me, it looks like he's eating the children, um,
maybe.
because he's
But it
like
almost
whole
looks like something's
right.
coming out of his mouth, or
Yeah.
maybe that's a tongue. Like I almost thought like he was like something was coming out of his mouth and he was turning the children into something.
Mm.
But maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe he's getting ready to feast on them.
Mm.
I could see that just as easy. I didn't consider that myself, but now that you mention it, I could see that him potentially getting ready to snack on these little kids.
I hope
Yeah, he's
not.
got his teeth
They
out.
have been through
He's got,
so much.
I
I feel
know,
so
right?
badly for the children every time I see them because
I
their
know.
hair loss, everything. They genuinely have been through so much.
They've clearly been put through the ringer. I mean, yeah, you see the state that they're in, and I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if them being kept underground for an extended period of time gave them this this look that how the appearance that they have with the worn and dirty and tattered clothes, the patches of hair missing, the pale skin that maybe has never seen maybe hasn't seen the sunlight in a long duration. We know that the during Jade's vision, when he sees the Anghooey children sacrifice, we also see these little cages, these what looks to be these little
Mhm.
cells that are back there, and these little cells do kind of look like that's where they were kept. Like that's where the children were kept when they were down in the caves. Where is it? Here we go. See these little cells here.
Mm.
So I wouldn't be surprised, and we get that whole the children were born in the dark and died in the dark. Were the
Yeah.
children potentially born underground? Were they forced to be kept underground? Were they born for the sole purpose of being sacrificed?
Mm.
Did they spend their whole lives down here potentially? Like these are all the questions I'm kind of wondering.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why we see these children still behind these bars, even to this day. They're forever trapped in this
Mm.
Fromville place, reliving the events of their death, maybe.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense with the vitamin D deficiency, their skin
Yeah.
tone and, um, the way that they look. So there's a part where in the finale where Julie tells, Tabitha that she heard the children, right? And that she heard her. And she
Yes.
then expresses that when she heard the children, she started to feel like, what about if I'm lost and no one ever finds me?
Yes.
And Tabitha
Yes.
comforts her and says, "Oh no, I'm always here for you. You're never alone." But to a part of me wondered as she was going through the journey, are those the thoughts of the children? What about if I'm lost and you never find me again? What about if you don't remember? Could that be the fears of the children that she was feeling as long, she was also hearing them? Because that's basically what's
Yep.
happening.
I mean, and it's almost like you said, I'll always be here. And it was ultimately Tabitha's voice that maybe kind of kept Julie grounded, that kept her from getting lost in that moment because she heard that familiar voice of her mother. Maybe that did kind of keep her from getting lost. Maybe her getting lost in this spirit walking or this story walking ability of hers, maybe that is a possibility. Maybe if she doesn't get a better handle on this ability of hers and she continues to story walk, maybe she will find herself stuck in a time period and not being able to come
Mhm.
back maybe. So no, I like that idea. I like the idea of Tabitha kind of keeping her grounded in that moment when she heard her voice.
I'm sorry I'm laughing, but Suzanne has a great comment. She's like,
Uh-oh.
they're they're white not because of the yeah, that could be because they're dead. Yes, I agree. That's a
Maybe
great
it's that. Maybe it's just that they're dead. This is also a possibility, yes.
the simplest answer sometimes is the right
Hey,
answer.
Occam's razor. Sometimes it's that simple. Yep, indeed. Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. But no, overall, I really love what season three did. I love how this season ended, and just all of the new possibilities that the show has really opened up for all of us. I mean, especially fans like us who really love the theorizing, love diving a little deeper into these things. They left us with again a lot to chew on. And even you, found some very interesting similarities. I mean, I know we've been talking a lot about the parallels, the very kind of obvious parallels here between From as a whole and the King in Yellow and an
Mhm.
inhabitant in Carcosa as well. And you put together something very interesting. You found some really kind of poignant connections between these two, and some very interesting corresponding scenes to go with them. So I'm going to play that real quick, and we're going to discuss it a little bit before we shuffle on out of here. But first, we got Wall Saint Tech for 234. Thank you so much, Wall Saint Tech. I am sorry I didn't see this earlier, my friend. Eyes not the pappy. I think this was earlier when we were talking about Smiley and good old Fatima being the mother of Smiley, technically.
Mhm.
Eyes not the poppy. Well, I mean, Ellis certainly isn't. We know that. We know Ellis is not the father. We don't need Maury Povich to tell us that. This one is not his, unfortunately. But no, I think this is going to be an interesting aspect of season 4, seeing this if there is this weird kind of connection between Fatima and Smiley. Now that she has given birth to him, now that she has kind of tapped into his memories and learned the entire origins of the monsters, are we going to see that there's still some kind of connection there in both ways? Maybe Smiley will have some kind of connection that he's sensing as well. So I'm looking forward to that into going into season 4. What is going on with Smiley and Fatima? But thank you, Wall Saint Tech, for the 234. Very much appreciate you, my friend. And I am deeply apologize. I didn't see that earlier. That is my mistake, my friend. I am sorry. I am sorry. But thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Let's see what else we got. Let's see what else we got. Let's dive into this now. Again, you found some some really just very poignant connections between the King in Yellow, Inhabited in Carcosa, and Fromville as a whole. So I'm going to play this, and then I want to discuss it a little bit with you, and you can explain some of your some of these connections to us and to the audience, because this is a really cool thing that you put together here.
Okay.
So without further ado, let's check out the parallels between From and Carcosa.
Sorry to interrupt your service. I was wondering if you could point me in the direction of the highway.
Yeah, you just keep on following the road right up that hill, right where you were going. You'll see.
I was standing on a bridge holding that bottle in my hand. And it was the first time in my life that I heard the voice of God. He told me to get back in the car, that there was another path for me to follow. So I did. I got back in the car and I drove, and 2 hours later I was here.
You don't have time, Boyd. There's darkness in the forest. Nightmares you can't even begin to imagine. Things we were never meant to see. Things that... You have to get out before the music stops.
How about that? That's a pretty big fucking coincidence, don't you think?
That Jade sure can play.
Man, oh man, oh man. Poor Jim. I still can't help but feel just a little bit bad for Jim. But no, this was really, really fun. And you picked out some really, really good quotes from these stories that are just almost like direct parallels to some of these scenes that we're seeing in From. This being the first. She said, to come is easy and takes hours. To go is different and may take centuries. The King in Yellow. If this isn't just perfectly laying out Fromville as a whole in terms of being one of these places where it takes easy a second to get pulled into it, but to leave it is another story entirely. May take centuries. This was a great one. This was a great find.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this is where we really see the beginning of stories like this. When we think about storytelling, there has to be a point where the story was told for the first time. And so this
Yes.
is the point. This is the point where we get the beginning of a story being told of a place, a town, a city, where you can go into the city, this place. Particularly, she says it takes hours, but you could not leave. You could never leave. You're trapped. This is the first mention of something like that. And that's something that we see referenced them from when Father Cawtrey says a couple of hours. All it took was a couple of hours from where he was to getting into
Yep.
From. And a lot of other
Yep.
people, there's, other characters that have said that. It was them driving home. Like Kenny, he picked up his father. They found him
Yep.
and he was driving home. So it's not really more than a couple of hours at most. And they find themselves in From.
That's very true. I mean, it's kind of the perfect little allegory for, this quote anyway is the perfect kind of allegory for, like you said, multiple characters that we're seeing getting stuck in From. I mean, the Father Cautery connection was really good. I mean, even down to the dialogue that Cautery said, where it's literally hours later. I was hearing From. I heard a voice beckoning me back in the car. Hours later, I was hearing From. It's just it's almost too on the nose. It's so accurate and it's so similar. And again, you
Mhm.
start to see all of these similarities from these two stories, and you start to wonder, can it really be coincidence? I don't know if it is. I definitely would not be surprised in the slightest if this story did
Mm.
serve as some influence for some of the themes and some of the stories that we're seeing on From. So this was a really good find. This was
Oh,
a
thank
really
you.
good find indeed.
Um, yeah, and just like you said, influence. So while we may be theorists and philosophers, we are not oracles. We don't know the answer.
Exactly.
We can just say
Exactly.
the possibility. And these are great writers. These are writers that created the things that we still talk about and write about today. So it's almost impossible for you not to be influenced by their work, especially
Yeah.
when it comes to horror and cosmic horror of places like this, like From. Um,
Hmm.
One of the things that I really was like, oh my God, this is so similar, was the fact that The King in Yellow is a play. So you're reading a book about a world where there is a play called The
Yeah.
King in Yellow. Everybody in that world knows that you should not read The King in Yellow, that this book is a cursed object. If you read it,
Hmm.
it will drive you insane. We have our Men in Yellow. The first thing that he, amongst the first things, because he says that Jade sure can play, um,
Yep.
he says, I warned you. So he
Yes.
echoes that idea of, yes, there's evil. I told you not to do that. I told you not to read this book. I told you
Yep.
not to dig that hole. You have been warned and you pass that line. You cross that forbidden knowledge. And so there's consequences. In the book, no one that um, is affected in the book is someone that is
Mhm.
just a victim. It's really
Yep.
somebody that knew they shouldn't be reading it and read it.
Yes. And couldn't help but succumb to the allure of the book itself, knowing they shouldn't. They just can't help themselves, and that's what's so intriguing about these stories. And one thing about I like about From and about these stories, and in the King in Yellow as well, as you mentioned, these are all willing participants, and it really is a kind of a deeper look at, just like From is, the kind of the basic human nature, the basic human condition, and how we operate, and how curiosity. Curiosity killed the cat. There's a reason why that saying has been around for so long, because we as humans are naturally curious, even about things we know that can be dangerous to us. So even
Mhm.
though these characters in this story know the reputation that this play has, know that the consequences that could lie in reading it, even knowing that, sometimes they just cannot help themselves but let the curiosity get the better of them. And it also is almost like the book itself is alive, has its own kind of will. It's like the book wants to be read, very similar to how Fromville kind of wants people in here as well. So we're seeing a very kind of interesting kind of almost sentience that both of these objects inhabit.
Mhm. And one of the most interesting things about Carcosa is that it's the characters that go further into
Yeah.
Carcosa because they're looking for
Mhm.
answers. And that's
Yeah.
something that we have been doing with From. Not only in the
Yep.
show do we see the characters desperately asking questions, looking for answers, becoming frustrated when they are not given the answers, but
Mhm.
us, the audience, we're right there, right along with them. We're frustrated, sometimes really, really upset, right? Because they're not providing the answers that we believe that we need,
Yep.
that these answers are all of a sudden going to make everything better. And
Yes.
that is Carcosa in a way. He says, the
Yep.
man in yellow, knowledge comes with a cost. You don't get to
Yes.
know these things and walk away unscathed. You're never going to be the same. Something is going to happen to you. It has to. And Martin echoes that when he says there are things in the forest that we should have never seen. We were not meant to see this. We were not
Yes.
meant to know this. And it talks about the cosmic horror because that's what it is. The idea that as humans, we can't handle certain realities or truths has been around for a long time. And that in itself is terrifying.
It is, and like you said, it kind of ties right back to the themes of the King in Yellow as well, in terms of this theme of forbidden and hidden knowledge that shouldn't be accessed by some people, and that when it is accessed, it's kind of overwhelming in the sense where it drives you over the edge, it drives you over the cliff, which is became a huge staple and a huge influence for almost all of H.P. Lovecraft's writing later on as well. I mean, you look at Lovecraft, and I know he gets a lot of the kind of credit for kind of pioneering the cosmic horror genre, but without writers like Ambrose Bierce and Robert W. Chambers, we may never have even had a Lovecraft. These two authors in particular were a huge influence on the entire Cthulhu and Lovecraft mythos that is so popular still to this day. And one of those themes that's at the heart of those writings is that the idea where this hidden and forbidden knowledge will ultimately drive you mad at just the very mere sight of it. And that's something we see here in Fromville, where there's something very much actively trying to drive these characters over the edge, trying to drive them mad. Again, just another similarity we're seeing between these really awesome stories.
Yeah, and there's a hopelessness in the show. From they talk about hope constantly, and constantly we see hope rising and falling, going through these cycles. The thing about Carcosa and about accepting this sort of story is that it's hopeless. There's a line in The King in Yellow where they say it is a fearsome thing to fall into the hands of a living God. If we were to know that it's hopeless, we would be so completely just upset that we couldn't handle it. And maybe that is the answer. You don't want to know that you're in Carcosa because it's just not going to end right. There is no hope. It's hopeless. And what you're going to find is your reality corrupted. The deeper that you go in, the more pain, the more suffering. So it's almost like an accepting of these facts. And we see that like at Colony House, where in Colony House, they kind of accepted that this is what it is. This is our reality. Let's try to make the best of it. Let's not question it too much. We don't want the answers.
Yeah. Not, it really is. It's an interesting kind of difference in terms of the two different mindsets that are at play when the show first begins, where you do have everybody at the town where they probably are a little bit more inclined to wanting to get out of here at one point and maybe, eventually ultimately going home. But the people at Colony House, they very much have kind of resigned themselves to, let's live every day like it's our last, because it is our last. This is it. This is the ultimate ending. This is where we are most likely fated to spend the rest of our lives. So it's a very interesting kind of mindset we see Fromville kind of divided up in when the story begins. And it's similar to these stories as well, where knowing that that hopelessness is there, that existential dread of the future not having hope. I mean, who knows? I mean, I can only imagine what that will do to someone's psyche. To imagine going through life knowing there's no hope. I mean, it's worse than death in some cases, and that will drive you mad, I'm sure. So
Yeah.
it's
In your video that you made, you mentioned Heta, the shepherd god. Hastur was not always corrupted. And I found it
Yes.
really interesting so I watched your video and I was reminded of that story because so many of us leave that story behind since it
Yeah.
doesn't confirm to what we know about the King in Yellow. It's
Yeah.
forgotten. But I'm so glad that you brought it up because even in real life in our universe, you can see how the King in Yellow, Hastur, did not begun his story as a horrible god. He was
Yeah.
once the god of the shepherds. He was kind,
No.
benevolent, and people would pray to him. So he
Exactly.
himself was corrupted as he went through these writers. And in a
No.
way, the idea of the King in Yellow was something that was contagious, just like the play. Once you read the original story where he was mentioned, these writers couldn't get it out of their head and they wrote their own story. And it spread until we have things like From, where we could see the influence.
Exactly, and it's funny how like as you mentioned, as the character Hastur was passed from writer to writer, we see him slowly evolve as a character and go down through these different iterations to the point where, like you mentioned, it's and that's why I did want to include that story because he wasn't always a bad guy. He did start off as this benevolent shepherd god that people would pray to for and for help. And it's so interesting how, as that character, I love how you mention it that way. As the character gets passed down from writer to writer, we slowly see the character change. Very similar to how, the journey that any everyday human will go on, where, nobody starts off corrupted. Nobody starts, well, most people anyway, don't start off corrupted. They don't start off as evil. Events shape them that way along the journey. And again, that there's been a lot of people talking about the man in yellow in particular on From, in terms of, was he always evil? Was he always this, malevolent force? Did he potentially start off a little more malevolent? Does he also have a kind of tragic backstory that made him what he is today? And that's what's so fun about these villain characters getting introduced in a very again, ambiguous way, where we know nothing about his backstory, where he could be the blackest of evils right from day one, or maybe potentially this character was, did have a little bit more of a different origin story, where maybe it was a little bit more malevolent, and maybe the very circumstances and events that it went through ended up, shaping it into this man in yellow, this villainous man in yellow that we see now. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's super prevalent on From and in the real world and just with everyday people as a whole. Nobody starts off evil, but you can easily be shaped into evil from real world events.
Yeah. And in your story that you mentioned, where he is not a horrible, evil king, but he is a shepherd god. In that story, the metaphor that they're using is happiness, where he's
Yeah.
meeting this beautiful woman, right? And the beautiful woman, he doesn't know her name until somebody else tells him, but that beautiful woman that keeps escaping him and he wants to spend time with, her name is
Yeah.
happiness. And the whole moral of the story being, once you start to question your happiness or you start to distrust it, it goes away. You can't have it. Happiness only exists if you allow it to exist without it being questioned, kind of like a colony house. They're happy for the
Yeah.
moment, but they don't question the reality. They don't think about it too much. Once you start to maybe not drink or not use substances, it gets too
Hmm.
real. And so they
Yep.
continue on this path of, let's just be happy by any means. If that includes alcohol or substances, let's just, or, being with each other physically, let's just be happy now. And
Mm.
it really calls back to how the King in Yellow started.
It does. And that's why it's such a very interesting dichotomy between these two stories, where there's so many parallels between the two. And this is why I really can't wait for season four. And one thing I'm a little bit nervous about, not nervous, but I'm wondering how they're going to play it, is this Man in Yellow character and the amount of screen time he's going to be given. Like in an ideal world, season 4 is going to start off and we're going to get some very interesting information about who the Man in Yellow is, hopefully early on, so they can kind of firmly establish just the gravity, the full gravity of the threat that they're up against. And from a writing standpoint, you can understand why something like that would make sense, where you want to establish to the audience, make it very clear to them who this character is, the extent of the danger that they're actually up against, and that's how you introduce a good villain. But again, part of me wouldn't be too surprised if they start kind of a little bit ambiguous, where I've just been very nervous in terms of how much screen time they're going to give the Man in Yellow and how much backstory they're going to give the Man in Yellow. Will we find out about who this character was in the beginning? Will we find out about his origins? Will we find out that he maybe was some kind of more malevolent character at the beginning? Will we find out that he did go on some journey that twisted him into this character we see now? I know there's a lot of theories going on right now asking who the Man in Yellow is, whether or not he's kind of this new character that's just getting introduced, or whether or not the Man in Yellow is a future version of a character we've already met. There's been a lot of popular theories. I mean, I hear a lot of people saying that Ethan is the Man in Yellow. I hear a lot of people saying Randall is the Man in Yellow. You hear some people saying the Boy in White might turn into the Man in Yellow, which is, again, all interesting theories. But I guess that's my question for you guys in the chat and for you as well, PM. Heading into season 4, where do you think it is going? Or even if not where you think is going, where you think it's going, or which would you prefer? Either or, whatever answer is fine. Would you rather that the Man in Yellow is his own character and this is a new entity that is being introduced? Do you think he is a new entity? Or do you guys think that maybe this Man in Yellow is a future version of a character we've already seen? Because I've seen a lot of theories going around so far as to who he could potentially be. But I'd love to know where you guys sit on it in the chat. Where do you think the Man in Yellow came from? Is he a future version of someone else, or is he something new entirely? What about you, PM? Would you rather new or based on another or future version of another character that did get corrupted?
That's a really good question, right? Because it's going to determine what we see. I want him to be a new character, and I wouldn't mind if they don't give us exposition as to his storyline. That would tie into the fact that maybe we're not supposed to know. We can wrap our minds around it, so we shouldn't know. But yeah, definitely somebody new. I would not like it to be somebody that we already met.
I'm with you too. That's kind of where I'm hoping it will go as well. And I really want him to be a new character, a new entity that is just getting introduced. And I think that would put it a little bit more in the realm, as this is the kind of polar opposite, the antithesis of the Boy in White, his opposite, his enemy, his the other half. Where this is this kind of cosmic chess game being played in the background between these two players, and they are fully on two different sides and have been on two different sides from the beginning. Maybe, who knows? I think it could be interesting depending on how they play it. I think there could be an interesting way to introduce him as a future version of another character. There's interesting ways they could do that. But I very much am in agreement with you, where I'm hoping and really preferring that he would be his own character. He's just a brand new character that is just now getting introduced, that they have been setting up all the way since season 1. And I think that would just be a funner kind of outcome if he was his own being that was this kind of opposite to the Boy in White, where they're both kind of fighting for control. And, one's fighting to stop the cycles, one's fighting to keep them going, kind of thing. I think that would be a really interesting aspect. But
yeah, I like that.
Yeah. True, even the devil was corrupted and was known as Lucifer, the angel of music and heaven, God's number one. Very, very true. It's a very good point. Even the devil himself started off as, God's most beloved angel, and before he had his fall from grace. So it's a very good point. I mean, evil usually isn't born evil. Evil is usually corrupted along the way and molded into evil based on events that it goes through. So yeah,
for
absolutely.
sure. And we get a lot of mentions of religion in the Bible and From.
Very much.
We've had a lot of characters mention what they believe is going on. And one of the theories, Cautry's, was that it's a play on the Bible.
Yep. Yeah, we get Father Cautry in season 1 talking about how this is the next book of Revelations that they're actually living. That's why there's no Bibles in Fromville, because the Bible technically hasn't fully been written yet, because they're living the last story of the book of Revelations. We get the whole Adam and Eve thing. We see the painting that Ellis did in his room of the kind of his version, his depiction of him and Fatima as Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. So yeah, we're seeing so many biblical references spread all throughout the show. Absolutely, indeed. And Justin White did ask earlier a comment I also did want to highlight, and I definitely wanted to get the chat's opinion on this again. I know we did a poll on this like a week or two ago as well, but it's always fun to see if theories have changed or how people feel on a subject a few weeks later. But Justin asked earlier if the man in yellow is the main villain of the show. And again, that's been the big question coming out of season 3 for me personally. And when I look at some of the surrounding evidence, knowing the magnitude of the character in which they introduced him, like they introduced this character with a bang, killing off one of the main characters in a brutal way. Like they really wanted this character to have an entrance, a profound entrance. And then you look at how they've kind of been setting this character up all the way back since season 1, the very first season, when Jim hears that voice on the radio at the end of season 1, and we find out all these years later that that was the man in yellow. They've clearly been setting this character up for 3 seasons now. So if I had to guess, yes, I do think the man in yellow is going to be the main villain. I feel like if they really, and again, if they really are only planning 5 seasons, like we mentioned earlier, which hasn't been confirmed, but that seems to be the general consensus up until this point, where it seems like they're planning 5 seasons. If that is the case, it's going to be very tough to lay the foundation for a new villain to get introduced with only 20 episodes left, considering they spent 30 episodes setting this guy up. So I do think this is the main villain. I hope it is the main villain. He entered the show with an absolute bang. They clearly wanted the audience to know that this is a very serious threat of a character that is getting introduced. So yes, I do think he is the main villain. But what about you guys in the chat, and you as well, PM? You think this is the main big bad?
Well, I think that you make a great argument as to why he should be. And I agree. We want it to be like a really good villain or big bad. So we can introduce somebody new. We don't have the time. It's better to work with something that has been pre-established, and that way we could get a full picture of who he is and what he does. Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. And again, anything's possible, of course. I mean, I think it's a little unlikely to set up and introduce another new character on top of this with only 2 seasons left, if that is the case. I think it's unlikely, but it's certainly not impossible. I mean, I very well could be wrong that there is still some other villain that is yet to be introduced that is higher than the Man in Yellow. It's certainly a possibility. But just based on how the story has been set up until this point, and again, knowing that they invested a lot of time in setting this character up, 30 freaking episodes setting this character up, essentially, when you look at his introduction or the hint of his introduction in season 1, it just seems like he's got all of the perfect surround makings, the surrounding circumstances to be a main character, a main villain. So I think he is, and I hope he is. I think this is a very intriguing character. I think there's so much that we don't know about this Man in Yellow. I mean, yes, we're seeing some very awesome influences and some very, very clear similarities between some other awesome characters that have come before him, like the King in Yellow. I know there's been a lot of people talking about the Dr. Maboose Easter eggs and the Dr. Maboose references as well, and similarities, which is very interesting too. But yeah, no, I think I just feel like this character has everything, has all the makings of being a main villain, I think. So I'm hoping it is. I hope this is the big bad. Let it be the big bad. Let's see what else. Yes, but how strong will the Man in Yellow be? Exactly. That's a very good point, Makia. Like, what exactly will be the extent, the capability of what this Man in Yellow can actually do? We know he's physically very strong. That much we have seen. I mean, he rips Jim's throat open with just with one hand, and very viciously, I might say, in a very brutal manner. Jim's freaking throat almost blows up if fucking gets ripped open. So fucking crazy. And and we also know he can come out during the day. So we know he's not a monster. He's not your traditional regular monster that we've been, that we've come to know and love on the show up until this point. He's out during the day. He's incredibly strong, and he seems to have foresight as well. He seems to know a lot about these characters. Like you mentioned earlier, PM, when he arrives, the first thing he says is that Jade sure can play. So clearly he's watching these characters. Clearly he has maybe some level of even omnipotence. Even maybe he is seeing a lot of what is going on in Fromville. Maybe he's the actual entity that is controlling a lot of this, even for all we know. There's so many different questions we don't know yet. But yeah, I think he's the big bad, and I think he's going to be very formidable. But that is the question, Makida. What exactly is the Man in Yellow capable of? What is the full extent of his abilities, really? Hopefully we find out soon.
The Jim's death, right? We could look at it in so many ways. I didn't want Jim to die, and especially not in that way. However, I do think that if you're going to be killed off, it was a beautiful death, because characters get killed off in all sorts of ways. But the way that he was killed off was grand, and it was beautiful and poetic, because there was so much that went into his death. It was one thing after another. You went through all sorts of emotions: hope, and then the loss of hope, the loss of love, heartbreak, and then fear. And finally he gets killed off by his throat getting ripped off. Beautiful. It was done beautifully, even though I didn't want him to die. But if you're gonna die, if I was Jim, that's exactly how I would want to go.
That's a good point. I mean, if you're going to kill off a character, kill them off in a meaningful way that is going to have a lasting impact, not only on us as the audience, but also on the rest of the characters that are left over. And I feel like Jim's death is the perfect character to do that in, tenfold, where it's obviously having that impact on us as the audience, considering the circumstances under which he did get killed, everything that led up to it, the really good character development that Jim had just before he got offed. But not only that, you take it a step further and you look at what are going to be the after effects and the consequences of Jim being killed on the actual show. So yeah, there's huge consequences here, both as for us as the audience to see where the show is going to go now, where the Matthews family going to go now, but for them as well, how are they going to react to the death of Jim? And I've also wondered, Jim gets killed during the day. Now, when Tabitha or Jade or whoever finds his body, I mean, are they even going to know who killed Jim? I mean, I imagine that's going to be an interesting kind of concept to see how they're going to play this. I mean, I have to imagine that they're not going to know that this random Man in Yellow showed up and ripped out his throat, unless the Man in Yellow is there when Jim's body is discovered. If it's a little bit different and Jim's body is discovered and there's nobody else around, the Man in Yellow is gone, and even the future version of Julie is gone at that point. How are they even going to make heads of tails of how Jim died? Or how are they going to assume who or what killed him? So there's going to be a lot of interesting ways that the writers can play the very beginning of season 4 and how Jim's death is discovered. Will the Man in Yellow still be there? Will it be a little bit more definitive that this Man in Yellow did kill Jim and the characters will know that they're up against a new threat? Or will it be a little bit more ambiguous, where they've come upon Jim's dead body and there's nothing else around and they're left wondering what the heck happened here? So that's going to be fun to see how they play it, if nothing
for
else.
sure. And that's what I love about From. Usually we would say, of course, they're going to find out. He was introduced, they're going to find out. But with From, they have done so many things differently. And they have taken the story to a different level where they will give you what they want. So that's what I love about the show, that potentially they will tell us, but also they could just not. They could come across his body and not know who it was and have Men in Yellow be gone for most of the next season. We don't know, right?
No idea. And like you said, that's the beauty and that's the magic of this show. And that's why I love original stories so much. It does start to feel like we're living in the age of the reboot and the age of the sequel, where a lot of movies and a lot of shows coming out nowadays tend to be based on pre-existing material, whether it's an adaptation of a comic book, an adaptation of a book, a sequel to an older movie. We're seeing a lot of redos these days, and not nearly enough just full-on original stories that aren't based on source material, that are really just a true new story. That's why I love From, and that's why this From fandom is so fun, because none of us know what's going on. None of us know where this thing is actually going to go, because there is no answer that we can run to and read all the source material and get all the answers. Yes, we can see some interesting influences that might have gone into crafting some of the themes on the show, but I don't think we can point to anything in the real world that's going to give us all the answers as to where From is going. And that's what's so fun about it. None of us know where this thing is going. That's what makes these discussions so fun. Anything could be happening because none of us know.
Yeah. And I would argue we don't want to know. I know that we talk
Absolutely.
about it and
Yep.
sometimes there's questions. What is it? I want certainty. I want you to give me, like Boyd says, right? Concrete answers. You don't want them. Because when the spoilers were going around, the people who did get to see what it was coming up on the next episode, it was ruined for them. So you don't want the answers. Even though you may believe that you want the answers right now, it's just not the time. It would ruin everything for you. So I'm kind of glad that no one has an answer that is 100% true, because wouldn't that be awful that you tune in and then it turns out that that was the answer and everything is ruined? The show, everything you're watching, it's spoiled. Um, I think maybe we don't want the answers, right?
Not all at once, at least. Absolutely not. And that's why I'm not really in a big rush to get all the answers, because once you learn all of the answers, yeah, the magic's gone at that point. These discussions, these theorizing that we do is going to get slimmer and slimmer and more limited the more answers that come out. Yes, we'll be able to more accurately start to theorize because we have more data points and because we have more answers, but then some of the magic is gone at that point. So no, I'm right there with you, where I'm in no rush to get the answers. I want this story to play out at whatever pace they need it to unfold at. I don't think they should be rushing to throw answers to the fandom just because they see complaints. I totally understand them wanting to give the audience a satisfying story, and you definitely want to give the audience what they want, but not to the degree where you're fundamentally changing your story or giving answers earlier than you originally intended just to please them. So no, I'm by no means am I in any rush to get all of these big mysteries answered, because again, then you lose a little bit of the magic. Each time you get a big answer, you lose a little bit more of this theory crafting. So no, I'm totally fine with the answers coming slow and just they come as they come, and I'm along for the ride at this point.
Yeah, and if I may ask you, Jeremy, I know a lot of creators get the episodes ahead of time. If they were to be offered to you, would you want to see it ahead of time or?
Nope, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I didn't for season 3, and I won't for season 4. I mean, I've gone early access to other shows in the past, like House of the Dragon and stuff, but that's source material that I know like the back of my hand, so I didn't really mind. But no, when it comes to From, I will never request, and I will always politely decline early access. I do not want to see these episodes early, because then it ruins the magic for me. And then, if I am seeing the episodes early, then I'm going to have to be very limited in what I can talk about in my videos, because it's not like I can go out there and just put out, really interesting theory videos like I would like to, because at this point I already know the answers that are coming. So I would have to be very limited in what I would even put in my videos, because I don't want to come across like I'm putting out quote unquote theories when I really
Mhm.
already know the answers to them. So no, I
Yeah.
mean, early access is not something I will ever accept for the show. Again, I politely decline it if it's ever offered again. I'll never request it as a YouTuber, and nothing against early access. I mean, I know a lot of channels get early access, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some people like getting early access, reviewing the episodes early. Nothing wrong with that. That's totally cool. Just for me personally, just my personal preference, no, I don't want early access, and I really enjoy watching these episodes each week with each and everybody
Mhm.
in the chat. That's what makes this show so fun. It's not watching the show that makes it fun. It's discussing it afterwards with everybody that really makes this show fun for me. So
Yeah.
if I were to see all the episodes early and there was like a bunch of stuff that I wasn't allowed to say, I'd be chomping at the fucking bit. It'd be driving me crazy.
Yeah,
So
and you
no,
couldn't
I
talk
like
to
the
anyone. Could you imagine
exactly.
like knowing the finale and not being able to talk to anyone and say how crazy was that?
Drive
It'd
me
be so
nuts.
frustrating.
It would drive me absolutely nuts. Hell, even if I had the first 4 episodes at once, and even that much information would be too much for me to bear. I genuinely love watching these episodes one at a time. And when you're getting early access, you're getting multiple episodes at once. And that's not how I like consuming television. I very much
Mm.
enjoy the weekly method. I'm not a big binge watch fan. I like the weekly method, the weekly format of storytelling, because then you have a whole week to kind of marinate on these episodes, to watch and rewatch them and really kind of understand them and find some hidden themes and some hidden Easter eggs or little stuff that they hid in the background that you might not have caught if you only watched the episode once. So no, I mean for all those multiple reasons, I would never want to see the episodes early because I'd be chomping at the bit, not being able to talk about it. So I want to see one episode at a
Mm.
time as they come out and watch with the entirety of the fandom. So we all kind of are on this journey together. But
Yeah,
that's just me.
I totally agree. And it kind of echoes what we were saying. People in the chat were reminiscent. Some of us are old, some of us are young.
Yeah.
But I did see in the chat they were talking about that idea that you had to wait to tune in and how fun it was. You would
Right.
think that it
It was
wasn't fun,
fun.
but it was
Yeah.
fun because you would talk
Yeah.
about it the whole week. It was like and you would talk about it the whole week and tell your friend, are you watching? Maybe even call them on the phone as you watch together. um so
Exactly.
recreating that with I really like that MGM didn't put everything out. Netflix
Yes.
sometimes will put out everything the whole season.
Mhm.
But I
Yeah.
like the style that they're doing it in.
100% agree, and that's one of the main reasons why there's not many shows that release all of the episodes at once that you'll find me reviewing on the channel. Just about every show that I review are shows that come out on a weekly base, because just for that very reason, when you have shows that are released all at once, you'll have a portion of the fandom that's seen this many episodes, a portion that's seen this many. You got to worry about spoilers if you're not watching
Mhm.
at the rate of everybody else. The show is never left in the public zeitgeist for anywhere near as long. You look at episodes that are dropped all at once, even the big popular shows. You'll see people talking about them for a month and a half at best, and then it's over. But when you have something like this, you have 10 straight weeks of nothing but massive amounts of fans
Mhm.
doing nothing but talking about From week in and week out for 10 straight weeks.
Yeah.
It keeps the show in the public zeitgeist for far longer as well. So just from a marketing standpoint, from the network standpoint, you would think you would want to release weekly, because if then you do have all these YouTubers doing essentially
Mhm.
free advertising for you. That's pretty much what we do. When we review these shows, like from a network standpoint, we're spreading the word of this show to people who maybe might not have seen it. It's free marketing for the networks in a sense. So I don't know why any network would want to release all their episodes at once, considering all the benefits that they could have by the weekly release schedule and having that show out there. It's where it's much more prone to catching via word of mouth and stuff like that. So yeah, the weekly schedule has always been my preferred method. Not a big fan of binge watching, and yeah, as you mentioned,
Mhm.
it does kind of bring you back to the old school days where you had one set time, one day, one night a week to watch an episode, and if you missed it, you missed it. You weren't going to be able to see it. There were no reruns. There were no DVR. There's no way to rewind it. You missed it, you missed it, and it added an extra layer of excitement to television, I guess, because it was so spontaneous and it was so
Mhm.
kind of finite. Where if you see it, you miss it, you miss it. You're screwed at that point.
Yeah, it was like so special.
Yeah,
Those of you who missed that time really are missing out because
yeah.
when MTV started, the music, the way that you would
Oh
consume music
man,
was through a video, so through TV. And I remember you would call your friend on the landline and be like, "Oh my God, you need to turn on
yeah,
MTV because they have the video for
Oh, such and
XYZ
such is
song.
on right now. Nirvana's on right now. Turn it
Yeah,
on.
and did you see it? Right. And it was so much fun because it created that excitement that we just, I don't know, like out of the loop. I don't even know if they make music videos for every song like they used to, or
I
it's
don't
only
even
particular
know.
songs.
I don't even know these days. Fuck, I feel old now.
Uh,
But no, yeah,
we're not.
it's a
We're
much
not.
better. It's no, no, I'm just messing. But no,
We are
but we are a little bit, yeah. But it is a way better preferred method. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some shows that are okay for the binge model, like a show like this. Obviously, a show like From that's very steeped in mystery that you very much benefit from watching each episode multiple times. A show like this would be like the worst show imaginable to binge watch. If you binge watch From and you're watching all of it for the first time, I guarantee you're missing so much stuff that is beneath the
Mhm.
surface that you really need to watch these episodes multiple times to see. So I would never recommend binge watching a show like From, but there are some shows out there that are probably a little bit more suited to the binge model, a little bit more kind of just surface level shows where you kind of just turn your brain off for a little bit and just consume some, some
Mhm.
funny, something funny or some good action or something along those lines. But no, shows like this, shows that really make you think, shows that really challenge you and make you wonder what is really going on beneath the surface. Those shows you need to watch weekly. So yes, I'm super grateful we don't get all these episodes released at once. I think MGM would do a big disservice to themselves if they did that.
Mhm. It would
Um,
almost be too much because
it would be.
we don't really have levity sometimes, and it's very brief. But if you're watching episode after episode, it's all high tension. It would
Yep.
almost be too much.
It would be. It's kind of information and sensory overload at that point where you're getting handed all of this information and you're not able to kind of properly categorize it and store it in in your memory bank. That's kind of how I consume these shows where I'm watching one episode at a time. I'm taking that data, I'm taking that information that I get each episode per episode, and I'm storing it in my story narrative. And that's how you factor into theories. That's how when you see what the show is giving you, and then you craft your theories according to what the show is giving you, not according to what you think or hope is going to
Mhm.
happen. I try to craft my theories on things that I'm actually seeing in the show. And in order to do that, I need to watch one episode at a time because, yeah, you start to watch them all at once. It's just, again, it's information overload. You're getting everything all at once, and it can be a little too much.
Yeah. I like what you said. Creating a theory based on what we see. Kind of like
Yes.
letting go of this
Yes.
expectation.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I was thinking I would take season 4 instead of theory crafting or looking at connections, just watching it and enjoying it for the work that it is, for the amazing show that it
Yeah.
is. And I feel like you almost enjoy the show more that way because you let them be who they are instead
Yeah.
of hijacking their show and making it what you want it to be, which I
Mhm.
could also understand, right? It's fun. Um, but I think I really trust them. I generally really do trust them. I know that
Yeah.
a lot of us like see the interviews and we're hoping that they give us answers, but I really trust them because they do have a history of creating shows that are amazing that we still talk about to this day. So,
Mhm. Yeah. No, I agree. Like I said, like you said anyway, that they got a good track record with a lot of the shows that they worked on, in my opinion anyway. I know that some of the shows that they've worked on, like Fringe and Lost and stuff, have, different opinions and on how they were handled. I love them personally. I thought a lot of these shows were handled as well as they possibly could. I feel like they answered all of the mysteries as well as they possibly could. I got every answer I was looking for out of Lost. They didn't leave any stone unturned as far as I was concerned. I got literally everything I was looking for. But again, that's another kind of matter of perception where everybody watches the same show, but we're all seeing it through totally different lenses. Just because I enjoyed something doesn't mean everybody's going to. I mean, again, I might be in the minority even when it comes to enjoying the ending of Lost. I know a lot of people didn't enjoy it, which is totally fine.
Mhm.
But for me, like you mentioned, I think they have a good enough track record where they've at least earned the benefit of the doubt, if nothing else. If nothing else in the world, after seeing seasons 1, 2, and 3, and after seeing some of their prior work, at the very least, John Griffin, Jack Bender, and the showrunner, I'm blanking on the showrunner's name now, of course, Jeff Pinker, excuse me, Pinkner. The three of them have definitely earned my trust. At least I'm willing to give all three of them the benefit of the doubt to see where this story goes, especially Jack Bender in particular. Like, I've been a
Mhm.
huge fan of Jack Bender for many years. I truly think he is the best director working in television right now. And you
Mm.
look at his repertoire and his kind of resume, and it'll reflect that when you see all the fucking massive shows and massive episodes that he's directed, from Game of Thrones to Breaking Bad and everything in between. The guy's legit. I truly think he's the best TV director working right now. So yeah, these three guys, they got an awesome team put together under them as well. They just the pieces are really aligned for them to really hit a home run for the show. Now, is it possible that they can drop the ball and butcher it? Absolutely. That is definitely possible. Season 4 could be the worst thing we've ever seen in our lives. That's very possible. But at least everything I'm seeing up until this point has given me at least enough confidence to think I think this is going to be good.
Yeah. And one thing's for certain, Lost, a lot of people feel differently. However, most people, if you mention the word Lost, they know what you're talking about.
Oh
Controversy
yeah.
is not always bad. They
Yep.
created something that we're still watching, we're still discussing. I know that the ratings like spiked with
Oh
From
yeah.
because a lot of us started watching Lost. So they're successful at what they're trying to do, and what they're trying to do is tell you a story. They have
Yep.
succeeded.
You're absolutely right. I mean, if something is going to leave a profound impression on people for that many years to come, then shit. I mean, they did something fucking right. That's for damn sure. I mean, yeah, it leaves that lasting impression on you, whether good or bad, whether satisfied or unsatisfied. It's one of those shows where it's mentioned and almost everybody has either seen it or heard of it. It was that big of a show. Again,
Mhm.
it was kind of Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones, before Thrones came around and really became the big worldwide cultural phenomenon that it was. Lost was very similar to that vibe a few years before Game of Thrones came out. It was I still to this day
Mhm.
remember when the final episode of Lost aired.
How
The
was it?
entire Oh, it was great. It was fucking epic, I thought. It was a really long extended finale too. It was like a 2.5 hour
Oh,
final
wow.
episode. It was so fucking long. It was great. And I still remember that right when the episode ended, there were live after shows that were being played on so many channels. Almost every channel down in basic cable had some kind of Lost after show that was playing right after the show ended, and they were just showing the whole world just like in tears watching the ending of Lost. Like it was one of those
Mhm.
big fucking moments. And yeah, I still remember it to this day. I remember watching it in the living room with my dad. He was a huge Lost fan as well. That was another show we watched together. And it was just again, I thought it was a very satisfying ending. I instantly knew what they were doing right away. For some reason, the Lost ending was widely misinterpreted by a lot of people. A lot of people saw the ending of Lost and they thought that the survivors were dead the entire time, and that's just 100% not the case. That's not what happened at all. Everything that happened onto the island, that happened to them on the island, really happened. The plane crash was real. They weren't dead the whole time. The only time they're ever dead on the show is in the final season, just for the side flashes that one final season does, where they create this kind of
Mhm.
purgatory world in order to find each other so they can all let go and move on together. So it was a really kind of fitting and wholesome ending at the end. But for some reason, that ending was interpreted as they were dead the whole time. The plane crash killed them and they were dead the whole time. But that's not what happened. I don't know how that was interpreted that way. I think maybe not everybody paid as close attention as they should have with Lost.
Mhm.
And I think we see a small degree of that with From as well. Like, I mean, just based on some certain comments I get every once in a while, And I'll be the first to say it's not from anybody that hangs out here. Like the regulars that hang out here, I'm so impressed with. Like you mentioned earlier, we have some of the
Yeah.
smartest people in this chat. And not just this chat, like all the From chat, all the From channels that kind of frequent this little corner of the internet. It's a very clever fan base in terms of you see some of the theories that people come out with, and it's like, oh shit, that makes fucking sense. Like, holy shit, I didn't see it that way before. Where I'm genuinely impressed with the majority of the theories that I see from people that hang out here. But on my recorded videos, I get a much broader audience of people watching, where it's
Mhm.
not just the regulars; it's a lot of just regular casuals as well. And I do see a certain degree of that aspect where some people are just misinterpreting certain scenes that they're seeing. Like the Julie scene, for instance, in the finale of season 3. It seems like that was being widely misinterpreted as people, for some reason, thought the present day Julie time traveled to a different
Mm.
place and that was a different Jim that died. And that's
Oh.
just not the case. Yeah, that's just not the case. If you watch the show, you should be able to clearly see that this is a different version of Julie. This is a future version of Julie that is coming back to the past, which is our present, and killing our present day Jim. The Jim that gets killed is the very same Jim that just had his whole life floored after learning that from Tabitha. But for some reason, I got a lot of comments of people thinking that it was a different Jim
Mhm.
that died. So
Yeah.
again,
I mean, it's a
it's
giveaway
all.
with the wig, right? It's like, how can
I
you
thought
miss
the
it?
wig
She looks
and the
totally
scar.
different.
Yeah, I think the wig and the scar was a giveaway, and not only that, the fact that Jim had literally the exact same outfit on him that he had a second ago. And not only that, he had that very despondent look still on his face. Like you could tell he just had his life changed before him. But
Yeah.
again, it's always a matter of perception again, and that's why I'll never theory shame anybody. That's something I've always made a very big point to do. Like even if it's a theory that I don't personally agree with, you'll never see me shitting on someone's theory because that's just such an
Mhm.
asshole thing to do. Like I mean, the chat is here, giving us awesome ideas and awesome theories and giving us really good discussion. I mean,
Mhm.
I would feel like such a scumbag if I were to ever shit on anybody's theory, especially after people are taking time out of their busy day to come and hang out
Mhm.
with us for a little bit and talk about a show. Like I'm super fucking grateful to everybody that shows up. So I could
Yeah.
never in a million years shit on somebody's theory. But yeah, that's
And
just
you don't
that's
know,
kind of
and that's I
because
love
we
that you
don't
said that.
know
I
exactly.
love
We
that you
don't
said that
know.
because we don't know. What about if, somebody comes out with something crazy and then it turns out that that's the answer? We don't know.
Exactly.
So, yeah, totally there with you. Uh, it's so amazing to be part of the cult because it is fun. We are having so much fun. Like every cult, it's a lot of fun at the beginning. Um, and that's what I love about it. Everybody is so friendly. People generally get to know each other and
Yeah.
like because there's
Yeah.
friendships that start here. There's
Yeah.
lots of things. Like I just love the group that we have. And yeah,
Yeah.
I can't see myself telling anyone like, "Oh my god, that's the stupidest thing ever." Like no,
It's
even the stuff that it doesn't make sense is fun. Like that Jolie thing,
yeah.
that's fun to me. Hearing that
Yeah.
is
It's still
hilarious.
fun. Still fun. Yeah. It's still worth a nice little chuckle. And again, it's always a matter of perception where, yeah, we're watching the same show, all of us, but we're all seeing it through our own lens. And our own lens is always going to be shaped and crafted through our own personal experiences, whether that's real life experiences or whether that's other TV and other media that we have consumed in the past that have made us kind of that have led to us making our informed decisions on what we think we're seeing. So no, that's what's fun about the show. That's what's fun about the fandom. It's the difference in thoughts. It's how we are all seeing something different in some cases, even though we're all watching the same show. But the added
Mhm.
aspect is it's great because none of us know where this thing is going. None of us really know the answers to these mysteries that we're seeing. There's a lot of good theories out there. There's a lot of theories that seem incredibly accurate and are most likely going to be true. But at the end of the day, anything is still possible on the show because we just really have no idea where this thing is
Mhm.
going because there is no source material to it. So
Yeah.
it gets extra
Oh my
points
god,
for
I
being an
just
original film.
sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. I
Oh,
just
you're
thought of
fine.
something else that was prevalent when the answers were revealed in the finale. A lot of
Mhm.
people said, "Oh my god, Jim is not the father. They thought that that meant that Jim wasn't at Julie's or any of the kids'
Yeah.
father because it was
Yeah.
Jade.
I
That was
remember
fun.
that. I do remember that. That was kind of funny. And there was a lot of good memes out there in terms of people talking about Tabitha having 3 husbands in the town right now, with
Mhm.
Jim, Jade, and Henry being there too. She got 3 fucking husbands in there. But yeah, again, it's been awesome to see how season 3 ended. I think they gave us so much shit to chew on, like a lot of really fun areas to explore now. Not the least of which is, my favorite area to explore, which is this man in yellow character, and seeing, where he is going to fit in on the show going forward, where he came from, what are some of his origins, what are some of his motivations. Because once you really nail down a character's motivations, that's when you really start to understand a character. Until you can
Mhm.
fully understand what motivates them, you're never gonna be able to fully get a handle on a character and be able to anticipate their moves and where they're going and theorize properly. Once you do have that motivation down, though, then it's a lot easier to guess what characters are going to do when you put them in any given situation. Once you do know their motivations and you know how they behave and how they think, it's a lot easier to kind of guess where they're going when you put them in a certain kind of predicament, I guess. So I can't wait to see more about
Mhm.
this man in yellow. I can't wait to see some more connections that end up being revealed to some of these other cosmic horror influences that we're already seeing. So hell yeah, bring on season 4.
Mhm.
Bring on season 4. All right, let's finish this here. And we have this one here. Everything seemed unfamiliar, strangely shaped and somber colored rocks. A few blasted trees appeared as leaders in this malevolent conspiracy. Now, I love this in terms of the few blasted trees and the strangely shaped rocks. I don't know if it was you, but reading this instantly makes me think of those rocks that are protruding out of the ground where Father Cautry
Mhm.
buried the back.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that in the last live about the King and Yellow. The rocks
Mm,
are what you said really spoke to you. And
yeah,
what I like is the trees, because in this instance, he makes the trees something that is natural, malevolent, and part of the conspiracy. And with the symbol and from, we're seeing that this symbol itself is part of the conspiracy. It is malevolent. The forest is not a safe place. They don't find comfort in the forest. So making trees and things that are natural scary.
that's a good point, actually. Yeah, because you see something like a tree, and you would maybe kind of naturally think that this is a natural kind of part of nature, not something that you would see of and instantly think that this is evil or corrupted. But that's the beauty about From, where something as innocent as a tree can be corrupted, and I think that's speaks to the corruption that we see being a very kind of prevalent theme on the show, where even good people, even people as good as Boyd's wife Abby, can be corrupted and broken here.
Mhm. Yeah. And the quote is actually longer. It speaks to the character finding the rocks and feeling that something has happened. It's an ancient place where something must have taken place. And they just stand
Yep.
there to witness. And when we saw the red rocks, immediately all of us said, okay, so this is about sacrifice. Something happened here,
Yep.
something really important. Even
Hmm.
though all we see is rocks, we can assume that they're important and they were
It's got that
part of
feeling.
they were part of a negative thing. I think a lot of
Mm.
us got that vibe, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, yeah. Seeing those rocks with the red kind of blood paint on them, and even the Cautry rocks. Yeah, you see them and you just get that kind of uneasy feeling, like it does kind of come across like this was some kind of sacrificial altar, some kind of site of something, some eldritch horror abomination happening, even especially when you see that Jade's having the vision of the man with the railroad spike right through his eye, pegged right to that tree, right next to the rocks. It gives you the feeling that this place is a place where something bad has happened.
Yeah, for sure.
100%. 100%. But yeah, no, these are some awesome connections. Man.
You don't have time.
Oops, let's get back here. Let's get back here. All right, we got another one. Now, this one was very interesting. And again, it's awesome that you found all these really kind of specific quotes that do kind of almost seem like direct translations to scenes and themes that we've seen on the show. He was half naked. His hair was unkempt. His beard long and ragged. Man, sound like somebody we know? In one hand, he carried a bow and arrow. The other hand held a blazing torch. And in this instance, I mean, I imagine it almost feels like the bow and arrow is Boyd's gun, and he's got the torch in the other
Mhm.
hand.
Yeah, and he talks about they're just the tip of the spear,
Yep.
alluding to
There we
some sort
go.
of danger. The way that
Yep.
he's able to see this or get out of this is with the torch,
Yes.
that we only see one time. I don't think that we have seen it again. So it was
I don't think
important
so.
for that specific interaction.
It was, and again, it does on another level seem like almost a direct translation. I mean, it's perfectly kind of describing Martin and the character that Boyd meets, and Boyd's journey as well. And like you mentioned, the significance of this torch, how until he grabs this torch and returns to these ruins, and it illuminates this place for him, and it reveals this place for him. Without the torch, he never returns there. So yeah, this is great stuff.
You don't have time, Boyd. There's darkness in the forest. Nightmares again, even begin to imagine. Things we were never meant to see. Things that you have to get out before the music stops.
I still remember the beginning of season 2. It started off so fucking good.
Mhm. It was really so confusing. When we
It
saw this
was.
yeah, the scene, I was like, "What is going on? Is he,
What
like,
the fuck is
traveling
going
back in
on?
time? Um,
Yeah.
how long are we gonna be there?" It was great, and I love the magical they usually don't use music like that, with
Yeah.
Boyd looking over this magical sort of music. It really put everything together.
Yeah. It's just and I still remember that feeling after watching those, especially those first 2 episodes of season 2. It was this feeling of, "Okay, what the hell just happened, and what kind of new mystery did we just step into?" And that's one thing I like about season 2, the beginning of season 2, is that it really kicks open the doors in terms of the world building that we start to see in that season. Where season 1 was very more kind of self-contained, it's pretty much all located right in the town. I know towards the end we see Boyd and Sarah start to wander into the forest, but for the most part, the main storyline for season 1 is mostly located kind of just in the town. The season 2 really kind of just kicks the doors open in terms of some of the world building and letting us know just how vast Fromville potentially could be, which is capped off in the season 2 finale more than ever when we see Tabitha finally get to the top of the lighthouse, and we see that almost 360-degree view of everything around her. And we see for the first time just how massively vast this place is, how we can't even see the fucking ending to it is that big. So I
Mhm.
love how season 2 starts off with that small bit of world building and then ends with literally just kicking the doors open and letting you know that this place is massively vast, and our characters have barely barely scratched the surface of everything that is potentially out there, and which is made very prevalent and a very interesting foreshadowing we get from Martin of that very same effect, with him saying the monsters are only the quote unquote tip of the spear. There's worse things out there in the forest, things that we were never meant to see, things that are out of our worst nightmares. The finale really brings Martin's words into forefront, into fruition, where now we're actually seeing what Martin was talking about.
Yeah, and once again, we have the warning. Martin
Yeah.
warns him. These are things that we were not meant to see, things that you can't even imagine. So once again, it echoes the idea that things are happening, but you have been warned. Nothing should
Yes.
really come as a surprise. A lot of us
Yep.
watching the show, we kind of get a little frustrated when the characters say, no way, I got a phone call on this phone. That right, they're surprised. And it's like you exist in a place with monsters and you're still surprised.
Exactly.
But they have been warned. It's like this is your reality. And yet they
And even
continue.
the more,
Boyd constantly continues to look for answers, even though he's kind of been through a lot, right? Every time he looks for answers, something horrible has happened.
Yeah, it's always it's kind of led to ruin. I mean, it's how he ultimately led to the ruin and destruction of his family, almost his entire family, even where he was so kind of consumed with being Mr. Fish and Loaves, with finding those answers. We're learning a little bit more about this place when he first arrived, that he unfortunately was failing to see the signs of his wife being deeply affected by this place. Even when his son tries to bring it to his attention, he still kind of brushes it off as it's, as if it's not as important as and
Mhm.
as vital as it is. So yeah, you're 100% right. The more Boyd is looking for answers, the more consequences he is, inviting upon himself and his loved ones. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I really
And
love
even
how it comes like full circle what you just mentioned, him not being able to take care of his wife. In the finale, we
yeah,
see Boyd tell Ellis, "Go take care of your wife. I'm right behind
yes,
you." So it
yeah.
really brings it full circle where he was not able to fix that. He didn't get an opportunity to. However, he's now given an opportunity to fix that for his child.
To warn Ellis, and it comes back to that whole warning thing where now he's warning Ellis. I wasn't able to protect my wife, but now you got to go protect your wife. I'm able to warn you to not make the same mistake I made. And again, with the whole warning comes right back to the man in yellow himself as well. As you mentioned earlier, it's one of the first things he says to Jim. I did try to warn you, Jim. Your wife shouldn't be digging that hole. I tried to warn you, bruh. You didn't listen. So yeah,
Yeah.
very, very similar. Very similar indeed.
Yeah, you can't say that he
Um,
didn't tell him not to.
you can't. I mean, he at least tried. As ominous and as foreboding as the warning was, it was still a fucking warning that Jim neglected to heed. So yeah, he got the warning. He just didn't listen. He just didn't listen. Yeah, we still have to see Jim hung upside down. I was really hoping that we were going to see that scene at some point. And I suppose we still possibly could. I mean, you never know what the future of the show is going to hold. But yeah, when I saw that in season one, I always thought that that was definitely going to be some kind of foreshadowing of a scene that we were going to see. That at some point Jim was going to venture to this lighthouse, maybe in search of Tabitha or something, and end up getting strung up like a Christmas ham. But yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know. I suppose it's still possible. Who
It
knows?
could still
Who
happen with
knows?
his body. We saw those
Maybe.
bodies of dead people hanging from the tree.
Yes.
Maybe Men in
Yeah.
Yellow grabs his body, hangs it from a tree, and that's how they find him. So
And
potentially
it's
we could
very
still see it.
we could, and what's very interesting about when Tabitha does see the vision of Jim hanging upside down, when
Mm.
she finally does get to the top and she does see him, when Jim opens his mouth to speak, it's not his voice that comes out, it's the sound of the RV right where he died.
Oh my
So
God,
maybe,
really? Okay, so
yeah,
that makes and why would the RV be like the boys, right? Why would it be?
exactly. That's one thing I've always wondered. How come when he opens his mouth, we hear the sound of the RV crashing into Jade? That's the sound we hear. So I've always wondered
Mhm.
why. So yeah, maybe they're planning a little bit more early on than we thought.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and this is this is what's fun about going back and doing rewatches as well, which we are doing every Sunday. This Sunday we will be diving into episodes 5, 6, and probably 7 as well. We're probably going to watch 7 as well because 7 is the Colony House Massacre. So we're probably going to watch 3 this week if that's something everybody wants to do. But every Sunday we are diving back into from right from the beginning. We've already watched episodes 1 through 4, and we are continuing that watch party every Sunday, starting right here on the channel and then continuing into Discord. But that's what's so fun about doing these rewatches, because you get to go back and watch these earlier episodes with a whole new, fresh set of eyes. a set of eyes that has all of these new answers that we got at the end of season 3. So we're gonna end up finding some new things that we didn't find before, or at least we're gonna end up coming up with some interesting theories that we probably never even thought to think of now that we do have this added context of the answers we got in season 3. So I love going back and doing the rewatches after a season ends, because it's, again, it's like, kind of like going back and watching it with completely new eyes.
Yeah. And From is really the perfect show to do it with, because you could watch it 100 times and still find interesting questions.
Yeah, still, absolutely, and that's what's so, and that's a perfect reason as to why the show is perfect for that weekly release schedule, where you just would be missing so much if you were to binge watch these episodes all at once. There's so much you would miss, I would imagine, as opposed to being able to watch each episode 2, 3, 4 times a week as you wait for the new one. Awesome stuff. All right, let's see what we got here. The Lynx. Yes, the Lynx in Inhabitant of Carcosa. The Lynx, the man with the torch, the owl, yet I saw even the stars in the absence of the darkness. I saw, but was apparently not seen nor heard. Under what awful spell did I exist? Interesting. Interesting.
And that's really him coming into terms with the fact that all along there has been these things that have been letting him know you are in Carcosa, right? So we have the torch, of course, we already saw that, but the owl. Elgin was talking about owls, and we thought it was really strange because he made such a point of it. It was kind of like a long monologue of it was always owls, and how she refused to make anything else that wasn't owls. So it really brought it, for me, it had the significance that the owl is important. How? I don't know, but it's somehow, maybe it is the mark showing you, we've talked about owls. We kind of have shown you these things. This is where you are.
I mean, the owl thing always was a little bit weird in terms of why are they specifically going out of their way to tell us about Elgin and this owl thing, if it's not going to be a potential foreshadowing for something else with, owl related maybe. So yeah, I always thought that was a weird one that kind of stood out with no clear reason as to why. I mean, it could just be random character development, I suppose, but I tend to think it might be a little more. Maybe it's telling of something that's going to be owl focused in the future with Elgin's character, maybe.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they work that in there. But also, I was apparently not seen or heard. They really had hope of the tower working because maybe they could communicate with someone. Someone could hear that they were in From and maybe get them help. But we really saw that it was the man in yellow. That was the only entity that they were able to reach when he said, your wife shouldn't be digging that hole. Nobody else can hear them. Nobody else can see them disappear. They're driving and then they're gone.
I saw it. I just, holy shit, I cannot wait. I don't know why I know not. I think a lot of us saw that thing and instantly thought, oh man, this is going to be a character that we're going to see on the show at some point that we haven't seen yet. And sure as shit, it absolutely was. And I also wonder what other things down there that we recognize, that we don't recognize, will eventually show up on the show. I have to imagine there'll be more. And there's tons of paintings down there of things that we just don't know what they are yet.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think the mic was kind of like going in and out.
Yeah, mine was probably just looking at my connection. It's starting to fade a little bit. So we might have to close this one down soon, but I've been having an absolute freaking blast into this stuff. But yeah, it's and in terms of, I saw even a star in the absence of darkness. I saw, but apparently not seen nor heard. I like at least I don't know, but at least the first line, I saw even the star in absence of the darkness. It kind of invokes a little bit of that scene between Julie and Fatima in terms of them being up at in Fatima's room for the first time, in terms of, if you look high enough, even a nightmare can look like a dream. and you see the stars out there in the distance.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking. Um,
Oh,
that's
okay.
really cool that you picked up on it because I like didn't find that particular scene, so I didn't put it in there. But that it's perfectly how the Fatima and Julie scene to me feels like, where she
Mhm.
is saying, look at this, you could still find beauty. There is still something
Yeah.
here, even in an unforsaken place. Like there is something here that you can find that it's wondrous, and that is the sky and the night, even though it's terrifying.
It is. It was a good scene too because all kinds of horrors, physical and spiritual, that want to kill, consume, and drive you mad. Even in a place like that, you can still derive a little bit of beauty in certain things, and that was just a really good example of that. It's even in a freaking horror landscape, there's things to be appreciative of, and there are
Mhm.
things that you can find beauty in still, even in this dark place, and which
Yeah.
is, again, very similar to Carcosa, and this is why Carcosa and From are so freaking sick. So I love it. I am loving these connections. Absolutely awesome. And yeah, sorry if I was ducking out a little bit there on my audio, guys. Susan says, "Did you abandon the other rewatch?" I'm waiting to hear from BK on that one. BK is supposed to be doing the Shogun watch parties every Saturday night, but he messaged me the other day and said that his computer was on the fritz and he didn't have access to hosting the watch party. So as soon as he's ready and up and running again, we will definitely resume the Shogun watch parties. We were supposed to do episode 2 and 3 tonight, but I guess his computer isn't quite working. I guess I'll have to check with him to see if it's if that has changed, if it's fixed. But I remember him saying earlier that he was having trouble with his computer and he wasn't able to host a watch party. But I'll check with him and I'll see what the status is, and if he's good to go, we will definitely resume the Shogun watch party because, yeah, I mean, I definitely want to continue that. Shogun was my favorite show of 2024. So fucking good, man. Such a good
It
show.
really is. It really is. I
It
didn't know
is.
if it was gonna be like something that I liked, but it really is.
Mhm.
The themes, if you like From, you probably would like Shogun.
You might. It's just such a good show. I mean, even if you're not a fan of samurai and feudal Japan, like the show is just so good in the sense of its production value and what the show really the scope of what the show covers and captures, like the real authentic look at what proper feudal Japan looked like, not the average depictions of samurai that we see in most movies and shows nowadays, where all you see is these samurai warriors running around slicing and dicing. I mean, yes, they were formidable fighters and formidable warriors, don't get me wrong, but the samurai lifestyle as a whole was about so much more than just fighting. They were artists, they were calligraphers, they were
Mhm.
actors, no performers. They did so much other stuff, and they always dedicated themselves to the ultimate mastery of whatever craft they pursued. And Shogun, again, it definitely is by far the most accurate look that you'll see of the Sengoku period of feudal Japan. Which again, it's a hugely fascinating topic for me personally. I've been very much into Japan and the feudal Japan era for a very long time. I've always loved samurai and found the whole culture very fascinating. Just the discipline of it, and that's what it really is at the end of the day, is the ultimate discipline and how to
Mhm.
live your life on a day-to-day basis. That is what the samurai embody, discipline.
Yeah.
So it's just such a good show, and the acting and the cast is phenomenal. The sets, the cinematography, everything's just great. I would check it out.
Oh, for sure. And what I really liked about it is, what you're interested in, you will find it in the show. In the
Oh yeah.
show, I found a lot of philosophy. It really is
Yep.
about the philosophy of stoicism. They were a
Yep.
stoic group.
Yes.
That is how you lived your life, and that is how you were able to not only be part of the community, but that is what was expected of you. We saw in that episode that we saw the person that loses their temper, who doesn't keep their stoic face and their stoic way about them, is the one that loses. So they are not what you would expect. Like you said, a lot of the samurai are saying like chopping things up and like being very, that is not the way, because it was the
Yeah.
person that loses their mind or their head or their cool that has to pay the highest price. It was very stoic, and I really like it. You guys would love it.
It really is so good. I mean, and again, just to appreciate the production of it in and of itself, to see the acting, the cast, how good the writing is, how good the cinematography is, how the lengths that they went to properly, depict an accurate look at the Sengoku period, which has never been done before, at this extent, at least. It's worth it just to see the production value in and of itself. Even if you're not into the story, even if you're not into samurai, it's worth watching just for that aspect alone. But like you said, PM, you'll find something you like about that show if you give it a chance. If you actually watch it all the way through, you should find something at least in that show that kind of that you like watching about it. Not everybody, maybe. I mean, I guess again, not every show's for everybody. That's totally cool. But yeah, in my opinion, it was the best show of 2024. Even a little bit better than From, I must say. But yes, we
Blasphemy.
will.
Better than From.
I
Better than
blaspheme,
From.
blaspheme. Um, yeah, at least as good as From. That's at the very least. But I was very impressed with Shogun, just in terms of everything that it encompasses. But no, two great shows. At the very least, the two best shows of 2024 were definitely Shogun and From, in my opinion, anyway.
That's better.
But yeah, yeah, that's better. It's a little bit better. Yeah, I don't want to blaspheme on our From stream, that's for sure. Um, but yeah, we will continue the Shogun watch parties. Again, I'll reach out to BM and I'll to BK, and I'll see what the status of his on his end is, because I know he was having a little bit of a problem with his computer. So we'll find out, and we will continue the watch party when he is ready. And hopefully we can pick it right back up next Saturday or another day if we can kind of plan it out and make it happen. We shall see. But yeah, awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. But yeah, heading into this final. Oh, there we go. And here we go. Let's hit play. Let's finish this out.
How about that? That's it.
This is still something we
Pretty
never
big
really got
fucking
an interesting kind of
don't you think?
answer
That
on this whole
Jade
Brian
sure
Kelly
can
thing.
play. Knowledge comes with a cost.
Man, oh man, oh man,
What
oh
a
man.
great scream. Julie really acted her heart out in that scene. It
I
was
think
like,
she did. Yeah,
yeah.
I absolutely think she did, and this is why I'm very impressed with Julie in this final episode. I mean, her whole character was just elevated, you know, many steps just in this last episode alone, with this whole story walker aspect being added to it. And yes, that really well placed scream, which is not very easy to do for actors and actresses to nail a good scream like that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where Julie's going to go in season 4 now. She's quickly become a much more interesting character.
Mm-hmm. For
I'm
sure.
enjoying it.
And I see the comment in the chat about Brian Kelly, like you mentioned. They did not go
Yes.
back to that. But I'm wondering if that was also a warning to Boyd about, we know you. We know you so deeply that we know things about your past. Stop looking for answers.
Maybe that was it. Maybe that was the ultimate message behind that line. Maybe there isn't anything deeper that they're going to explore on that. Maybe that was the meaning we were supposed to suss out of this, that this place knows you on such a deep and personal level that they're even pulling people in here named Brian and Kelly just to fuck with you, kind of thing. No, that's an interesting explanation. Absolutely, because it did screw with him, if nothing else. I mean, it definitely stuck out to Boyd, where he is conveying this to Donna, where what are the odds of this? What are the odds that somebody named Brian and Kelly end up here, and the circumstances under which Brian and Kelly do end up here, and their ultimate fates? The same fate as his Brian Kelly, in terms of them both ultimately dying in a pretty gruesome manner. So yeah, it's maybe that was the whole gist of it, to let for Fromville to let Boyd know that we know you, that we know who you are, and we know what is going to affect you, and we're going to act accordingly, and mentally kind of mentally strain him further and further with all of this information they know about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I think that's a good explanation for the whole Brian Kelly thing, because I was always wondering about that. Like, what's up with this whole Brian Kelly thing? Are they foreshadowing something a little bit deeper? Is there something that is going to be coming? Was there a reason they put this Brian Kelly thing in there? And I think you might have cracked it. I think that might very well be the reason, just to showcase that this place knows you much more intimately than you will ever know it.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Awesome stuff. Makes sense. It makes sense. But yeah, overall, I think yes, we have a little bit of a wait for season 4, but I think it's going to be a phenomenal season. I think it's going to be, again, I think it's going to be dark. I think as dark as season 3 ended, and as as low of a note that season 3 ended on, with the death of Jim, and the state of the town, and with the whole Man in Yellow like officially entering the fray now. As bad as that was, I do expect season 4 to be a dark season, a very tough season, where in season 5 we will finally see our characters kind of rise up and ultimately triumph. But before that to happen, they're going to need to get brought even lower than what they were brought in season 3. So I do think season 4 is also ultimately going to end on a massive low note. But I do think they will ultimately triumph in the final season, if they are doing 5 seasons, which it seems like they might be doing. I know it's not confirmed, but that's my guess. That is where I think season 4 is going. I think it's going to be dark. I think we're going to be losing even more characters than we lost in season 3. And I think our characters are going to be put through a hell of a psychological manipulation. They're going to be tormented psychologically and physically. And I think it's going to get bad. I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And again, I think that's all kind of playing out just like the little foreshadowing we got from Ethan very early on in season 1 about his whole quest line, about this being a quest and everybody has a part to play, and how it's going to get a lot scarier when we get to the end. And now it looks like we are officially getting to the beginning of the end, now that the end of the beginning is officially over. So yeah, I think it's going to get very dark in season 4, but I think they will ultimately rise up in season 5, and a few of them will ultimately beat this place and get out, but a lot of them are going to die along the way, including Boyd, including Victor. The only character I'm like 100% sure that will make it out, I think, is Kenny. I don't know why, but for some reason, I think Kenny is the only character that I think is 100% definitely going to make it out of here. I think Kenny will ultimately succeed in becoming that next Boyd, and successfully filling Boyd's shoes and leading the rest of these people to safety. I think that is going to be Kenny's ultimate fate, saving these people, as Boyd kind of sacrifices himself to put Kenny in that position. That's where I think Kenny is going, but I think Boyd's not going to make it. I think Victor's not going to make it. Henry's not going to make it. I don't think Jade and Tabitha are going to make it. I think both of them are goners as well. Julie will probably make it. But with the exception of Julie and Kenny, I don't think any other character are 100% going to make it to the end. But that's just my prediction.
Wow. Those are major characters. But I could see that happening. We can't have a happy ending if there's no death and despair. So I could see it.
It's got to be bittersweet. It's got to be a little bit bitter and a little bit sweet. And I think we're going to get a healthy mix of both. Just considering how the show has been structured up until this point, where even the triumphant moments can come at a pretty big cost, even now. I think we're going to see that on a much grander scale in the end, where we will see some characters successfully, complete the quest, quote unquote. We will see some characters successfully get out of here, but I think it's going to come at a massively heavy cost, and that heavy cost is going to be some of our most beloved characters, like Victor, like Boyd, like Tabitha, like Jade. Unfortunately, as much as I hate to say it, I don't think Jade's going to make it either. But Kenny, I think Kenny is going to be set up at the behest of Boyd with a sacrifice that Boyd most likely makes. I think that will put Kenny in a position to lead them home the rest of the way. I think Kenny's going to play a vital role in the end in saving everybody, or at least the few remaining survivors. But we'll see. We shall see. We shall see. But that is going to do it for us tonight, guys. This has been a fucking phenomenally fun stream. I had an absolute blast. We've been going for over 4 hours now, and it doesn't even feel like that. And this is not going to be the last one we do. We will definitely continue to be diving into all things Season 4 predictions, and I'm sure PM and I will definitely get together again and do another Man in Yellow stream if she is up for it. And we're here. We're going to continue to dive into all things From while we are kicking off this long hiatus. And thank you so much again, PM, for joining me. These are always a blast.
Oh, thank you for having me. You have a lovely home.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. And of course, biggest thank you goes out to you awesome folks in the chat. A huge thank you for showing up and hanging out with us. I know you could be anywhere else in the world on this fine Saturday evening, and the fact that you chose to spend a little bit of time with us hanging out is very much appreciated. So thank you, each and every one of you. And thank you so much, Wall Saint Tech, for the super chat. Very much appreciated, my friend. That is going to do it for us tonight. Tomorrow night, we will be continuing our From rewatch parties with episode 4. No, not 4. We will be doing episode 5, 6, and 7 tomorrow night. I'll be starting right here on YouTube, going live around 8 p.m. Eastern, and then an hour later, we will be transitioning and heading over into the Discord, where we will continue our From rewatch party and see what other kind of new mysteries and new clues that we can pick up on now that Season 3 is over. But again, big thank you to each and every one of you for joining us. Stay safe out there, guys. Make sure you enjoy the rest of your weekend out there. And as always, keep those tinfoil hats on, folks, and we will see you on the next one.